could be with anyone, you're here with me. You're here with me. You could be around with me. You could be with anyone, and I could be with anyone. You're here with me. You're here with me.
Hey, what's happening? How's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful Sunday. I'm James. This is My Take on Reality. And with us today is
Jenny from Senior Perspective.
All right. Nailed it. Per use. Jenny's a professional, consummate professional. So no worries there. Hopefully everybody's having a most awesome Sunday.
Yes.
As we get into the craziness. What's going on, Mama Cat? I see you guys. Tiffany H, all you guys hanging out. So this particular chapter, we had kind of talked about it a little bit right before we came on, and this is the each one of the chapters is broken down. So for those who are not necessarily following along with the book but just tuning in, I appreciate you still. Mm-hmm. So this is one of those chapters where people it start out like you get to talk about how the people met and how they came together and how everything started. Then you got to talk about how they courted, how they were married, early married life. This is talking about more in depth the finances from Meri's perspective. This is Meri's portion. So it's finances, discipline of children, and how the dating for the children. That's one of the issues that they brought up. She thought was important to bring up. Mm-hmm. How the kids will date moving forward. So without further ado, what was your overall opinion of the chapter?
My overall opinion of the chapter is that Meri has a lot of insecurities, has a lot of excuses, and I think she means well, but this was an attempt at being proactive and defending herself against accusations that haven't come yet.
Yes. Which is kind of scary too, because we'll get into it about like some of the, I guess we'll cross compare it from what she says to some of the accusations that were brought up or some of the implications. I can't even really call them accusations because nobody's actually come out and said she did A, B, C, D. Right. But there's an implication that there's accusations out there.
Right.
So I want to be fair about it. But I will say this. If you come out and you start out denying, it doesn't look good for your defense. This is actually part of the reason why a lawyer will tell you never talk to the police. If you start your case out, I never did nothing. like whoa, I did not steal that. Like
that's right. We didn't say anything about stealing. What are you talking about?
Right. Why are you talking about stealing? What? Yeah, and that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
God
bless her.
Yeah.
It's easy to go in hard on her on this chapter because she is so defensive. So I tried really hard to try to look at her more sympathetic in this because my knee-jerk reaction is just I have something to say about every line.
Right.
So I really tried hard to take myself and put myself in her shoes and when I was doing that, I'm like, okay, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who is very, very sheltered and doesn't have great communication skills.
Right.
And that's why she's coming at this chapter, I think, the way she is, because she never handled it in the time appropriately. Even at the time of writing, I think a lot of this, the sister wives were probably surprised to read. I don't think she said some of this stuff to their faces. Communication is just, for as much therapy as they've had, I just don't understand how poor their communication is. It blows my mind.
Well, because apparently it wasn't safe.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's not safe to bring up certain topics, and therefore we won't talk about certain things, and nothing will get resolved, and we'll have all this inner turmoil, and that will be our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing too, because they talk about like a safe topics, safe issues. And they used a lot of the catchphrases that you would pick up from, I guess, being in therapy. So clearly they've been in therapy and they've been talking to someone. But there's always the point of, no matter how much somebody talks to you about a thing, it doesn't really mean a whole lot unless you're ready to understand it. One of my favorite sayings, I don't know who started it, who said it. I can't take credit for it, but it's I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. You know what I mean? Like, so,
I like that. I've never heard that before. I'm writing that down.
you know, but it's one of those situations, because like a lot of times people will find themselves in this type of deal where they're trying to talk to a friend about certain issues that are coming up in their lives, and they're saying, "Look, man, that's what you got to do." Blah 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 blah. And the friend is like, "Yeah, it's terrible," and they listen to you the whole time, but there's always that point where they just stop. They don't do the next step. So I'm sure people have told them, like, you guys have to do better with the communication. You have to talk. You have to express more. You have to come to a meeting of the minds, especially when it comes to you dealing with somebody's child. And that's one of the things that we'll get into in this particular chapter. When you're talking about people coming in disciplining your children, especially if they're disciplining your children and for things that you don't agree with, or they're doing it in a way that you don't agree with, this can create a problem in and of itself. Like, I think that this is one of the things that you should really sit down and have a conversation with your future spouse about, much less when you start adding sister wives. But you should talk to your husband or your wife about how you feel about certain forms of discipline, whether you're a timeout person, whether you're a corporal person, whether you're, where do you fall on the spectrum of discipline? What do you think is discipline worthy? Those like basic things. Like, sometimes you got to tear it down to the nuts and bolts. Had these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that they all basically disciplined however they wanted to when they were in charge, but it wasn't like this was just a babysitter you were dropping off for 2 hours one time, so that they accepted the fact that, well, when each wife was in charge, that we knew that all the kids had to listen and follow the discipline that one had at the given time. Not only is that going to cause chaos and confusion amongst the sister wives, which it did, and a lot of, it ended up being sort of the end of the relationship between Meri and Christine, and maybe Meri and Janelle too. Just don't have more deets on what the crux of that big argument was. But, if we can definitely say the Christine one at least had to do with discipline. They both admitted that. But to think that the kids, every time they were with a different mother, had to adapt and remember, okay, now I'm here. It's one thing if you're removing them from that environment and putting them somewhere else. Like, now you're at your grandmother's house and these are grandma's rules. Or now you're at preschool and these are the preschool rules. But within the same home, depending on which person happens to be there at a given time in front of you, you have a different set of rules that you have to abide by. And I just think that's difficult for the children. I don't think that was a good one.
No, I agree with that. Whoa, I'll turn my lights off. I agree with that. I think that because that's one of the more important things, because they keep talking about like the idea that, because like you said, there are challenges in every hierarchy. In every family, there's a certain hierarchy. Yeah. So when you're over at Big Mama's house, Grandma's house, or Mama, Meemaw, Grammy, or whatever you call her, she has certain rules for her house or her homestead. When you're home with your parents, that might be a different set of rules, and maybe things are carried out different, as you said. And I think that we always have to keep in mind, especially as monogamists, kind of what you were saying before, is that how we would do things is a little different than how they would do things, because they would be closer to like step parents coming in. If you have bonus moms, bonus dads who are entering into a family and they're dealing with the kids, then how they might, want to discipline the children one way, and maybe the mom or dad doesn't necessarily agree with it. The non-custodial parent might not agree with how they're doing it or how they're handling certain situations.
Yeah, so I think that's even trickier than what they had to deal with, though, because you have an established relationship and then you have the new one, kind of like Robin. She was more like the stepmom of the situation. think since the kids were all young and all grew up with all three of them, that they had the perfect opportunity to sit down and set up the Brown family rules. It seems like the only rule they had was you can't date until you're 16, and until people started turning 16. And then Mary's like, well, it doesn't really apply to everybody. So
Right.
other than that, whatever rule it is, it depends on which mother's in front of you at the given time. But I mean, I could see it being very difficult for Robin. And I know that was a big problem for Robin coming into the family, that they didn't respect her as a mother figure, and they had a hard time accepting her kids, which I'm sure is common in a lot of blended families. And this family admitted they didn't do a good job of blending. They really didn't, because they were so used to, I think because they had three different moms with all these different kids, and they blended so well together as siblings that they just, I don't think they thought far enough ahead to realize this blending is a whole different thing. We can't even use the same word. Like what we had really wasn't a blending. It was a family that just happened to have more adults involved in it. Whereas bringing Robin and her kids in, that was the true blending. And I don't think they ever prepared or did the research or talked to their therapist about this clearly. I mean, they just really didn't do the groundwork they needed to do to prepare the kids. And the parents have admitted that over the years and said, Janelle just did, I think it was season 18 in the tell-all, saying, we just basically told them this is the way it's going to be. And, get used to it. These are your new siblings. This is your new mom. And she's like, we did not listen to them. We didn't talk to them. And so obviously, even if they didn't listen and talk, they also didn't, when they did tell them that, not do it in a way of like, well, here are the guidelines and here are the rules and this is how it's going to work and this is how often you'll see them and these are the and because they all had different rules. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm defending Robin, because I just put a defending Robin video up this week. I don't know what's happening. I've been ill all week. I think it's gone to my head. Maybe my fever's coming back, but I feel like she really was at a disadvantage coming into this family who everyone willy-nilly had different rules, but the kids had these parents all along. And then Robin comes in. This isn't Robin's chapter at all, so I'm sure she'll complain about it when her chapter comes. But when she comes along, she's got her set of rules too. Well, yeah, no, especially the teenagers. They weren't raised the past 14 to 16 years with these rules. So why would they change anything they have to do? The whole thing was an utter mess. It didn't need to be. That's the frustrating part, James. It didn't need to be an utter mess. They could have really sitting down and talking through it and maybe finding somebody who has a little bit more knowledge in the area of child psychology or child development, or just, somebody in that realm, a psychologist of some sort, to really walk them through raising kids with multiple moms. I'm surprised, if they really want this polygamy to take off in the AUB faith, you'd think they'd get specialists in there to really work with and train these families when they get together. But it seems like they have nothing. They do just the opposite. They tell them how great it's going to be and all the glory they're going to get in heaven. And they don't focus on how difficult it's going to be, unfortunately. So in that regard, I felt bad for Meri, because I really feel like there's so much to slam in what she says and what she does, but I just don't think she knew any better. So then I kind of flip and go, I really think this was like the best she could do given the situation. That being said, a lot of it not good.
Right. Well, because I think that there's a part of it too where, one, I think to your point that they could have been done better. The first part of it, I think that created the biggest problem was nobody ever took their time with making sure that this family actually could create bonds with one another. They thought just by you coming in and slapping a title on somebody, this is your brother, this is your sister now, that would cure everything. This is your new mom. That's going to fix everything. Where I think that kind of what you implied earlier with the success that they had with the other children and blending those families together, the families weren't blended because, like you said, they started together. So they started having children when
Yeah.
everybody was already in place. So it
Mhm.
wasn't that you were adding people and trying to
Right.
figure things out. You were growing and developing, as another quote, Mike Tyson, he said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Like when you become a parent, you always, like when you're in high school, you're in college, and you get married, or whatever happens, and you start thinking about having children, you like, when I have kids, I'm going to do and I'm gonna raise them, and they're gonna be courteous, and they're gonna be this, and and everybody has a plan up until the time that you actually come in contact with them. Sun Tzu, plans rarely survive first contact with the enemy. Like as soon as you start dealing with your kids, a lot of those plans have to shift. A lot of those plans have to change because one is the theory versus practical, the theory versus practicum or practicality or practice versus actually dealing with it. And you have other personalities that you have to deal with. The other part of it with Robin, I feel like there was an expectation that things were just going to work out because it was Robin. Like I think Cody was amped up that he was getting this woman that he wanted, and he just assumed that everybody was going to accept her kids because it worked out for him if everybody did it, and it didn't happen.
No.
And so that created a problem as well. Like I think that and like you said, the AUB, they would be better off if they did sit these folks down and try to figure out better ways to do things. But unfortunately, if they actually came up with more healthy ways to do a lot of this stuff, and I'm not I want to call everybody a cult person, but in organizations or institutions that are designed to oppress other people, you don't necessarily, if you fix the problems where people are actually being treated well, then you don't have the benefit of being in charge of an oppressive organization anymore. Like all of a sudden you're giving up power, and I don't think they really wanted to give up power. I don't think they wanted to give up that empower the women. I don't think they wanted to empower the kids. I don't think that they even the guys who are coming in and the young guys who are marrying into this faith. I don't think they want to empower them. I think they like the way things are going. They just want to expand upon what they already have. So I think that creates a problem too.
Yeah, absolutely, James. Absolutely. It's a mess from top to bottom. Can we all agree?
Yeah. Because like you said, they'd have to, in order for them to fix a lot of this stuff, they'd have to rip it all the way out. They'd have to tear it down to the studs, as they say, before they try to do anything. Don't forget trying to rearrange the furniture. You got to tear the drywall out because this is terrible. Yeah. They messed this all the way up. Yeah. It was messed up from the beginning.
And I don't think Cody had any of that foresight at all. Like you said, because he liked Robin and he thought her kids were fine. Why wouldn't everybody just like them as well? Because everyone else gets along. It's apples and oranges, James. There's your apples and oranges comparison. They're not the same. They're both fruits. They're both family, but they're very different.
Right. Man.
If Robin can steal it, I can steal it back away from her.
Right. It's an exchange of ideas. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the big things. But as we look at it, one of the things that kind of stuck out to me, even just getting into the text,
okay.
One of the things that stuck out to me was when they started talking about finances, because I thought it was because finances, especially for a lot of the fan base, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but for me, like the dollars don't make sense. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like how they spend their money and how the money comes in and how it's going out and how they're doing things. It just didn't make sense how they were doing it. So it's nice to see a little more explanation or a little more meat on the bones when it comes to it. But she still doesn't go into explain how a lot of it would actually work, what the practices were. But what Meri explained was, in the very first paragraph, she said, one of the biggest challenges we faced in figuring out how polygamy would work for us was learning how each wife would maintain her own autonomy while being an important part of the family. When Janelle and Cody first married, The three of us shared a bank account. Big mistake. big mistake. Shared a bank account. It wasn't long before we learned that this wasn't an ideal situation. For anyone, money is a tricky subject. Our situation was particularly delicate since we were all new to polygamy. I could have told him that. And it's just because there's certain things, like I think we had talked about it before, when you get married, depending on your faith, and if you're getting married in a religion, in most religious ceremonies, the priest, preacher, or officiant will sit down and want to have meetings with the two people who are going to get married and try to go over certain questions. Kids, how many kids do you want? Do you want kids? How do you see money? How do you spend money? Do you have bills? What kind of debt do you have? How much credit do you have? What does your credit score look like? These are all important conversations. And again, this is one of those things that they really should have sat down and had a conversation about this. And I think couple good conversations probably could have stopped a lot of pain in the family. But what do you think? What are your
100%. And the fact that Meri wasn't aware of the fact that Janelle now, and I get that her and Cody put all their money together. And then when they needed to pay bills, it was one bank account. So Janelle comes into the family. And again, we can go back to the fact of how come there's no counseling on this? Because obviously it's a unique situation. I think a lot of couples that get married get counseled on this ahead of time, and it's just a normal husband-wife situation. How do we handle it? Does it all go together? Do we have a major pot and we each have our own? How are we dealing the money? In this situation, obviously, the church should be like, here's what we found works best, but discuss it before you get married. This is, so that you have an understanding. If you're bringing in a new wife, explain to her, this is how we do it. Are you okay with that? Because this is how it's going to work in our family, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so none of that happened. So Janelle comes in, and Meri says that Janelle is now contributing to the pot as well, but Meri is the one that always paid the bills before, so she continued to pay out the bills from it, and Janelle really had a difficult time with this. In my opinion, I would say it's because Janelle's probably the one that brought in the biggest paycheck. And so it was going out without a real accounting for it. Now, Meri mentioned that they had family meetings. And so the three of them would sit down together and they would discuss, kind of like where money's going to go. But we've seen how those work. We've seen like the business plan that didn't exist for Lizzie's place. We know how Meri handles that. And I think she does great in her current businesses now. And I think she's been very profitable with it. But especially back then, and if we look at the beginning of her real business with Lizzie's and that too, and kind of being like, well, I don't really have a business plan because I just wanted to. Anyway, so I can imagine that, yes, they discussed it all together. Meri went ahead, paid certain things where there was extra money, just, paid for other things or gave Cody extra money or however that worked. But there was nothing on pen and paper. And I can see Janelle's left brain mind saying, where's the ledger? Where's the, I'm okay with bringing in more money. I just need to see where it's all going and that it's going where we agree to. Now, we do know that over the years, we have learned, and Janelle's the first to admit it, that Meri is very loyal and she's very trustworthy in that she would not do wrong by the family with the finances. But this is right after Janelle comes into the family. She doesn't know that. And as Meri explained it, how did she say? Oh, she said, I realize how detrimental that has been to my relationship with Janelle. And she writes that in present tense in this book. So this is after fourth wife has come in. We're talking 14, 15 years in, and that she's still saying, I now see how that one situation back then has been to my relationship with Janelle, that it is still a wound. Now, for two reasons. One, money's a big deal. We know that. One of the major reasons for divorces is money. So when they're not really talking it out and Janelle doesn't feel like she really is an active participant, I'm sure the conversations, because Cody and Meri were so close at the beginning and Janelle was a little bit of an outsider when she came into the family, I'm sure Janelle sat in on the meetings, and I'm sure Meri thought that Janelle was an active participant, but they probably conducted their meetings as they always did, like, oh,
Right.
this month, what are we going to pay? Well, we got the car bill, we got the house bill, we've got the electricity, we've got the this, that, whatever's left over. Oh, okay, good, let's go. And off they went. So I think that's it. But I also think that Janelle bringing in a larger portion, as I mentioned before, there was one other reason. Oh, it just slipped my mind. But when it comes back, I'll tell you. There's one other reason that I think that this was about. Oh, I know. Just that they can't communicate. And this is on Janelle, really, because obviously this really bothered Janelle, but Meri didn't know that it was really bothering Janelle for a while. And it became part of a big, argument amongst them. But then, they did right by the fact that they decided to split it up. But that's where it's so classic Brown family information, whether it's the show or the book. And that, like, what does that mean that you had your own accounts? So, like, all three of your money still goes in a pot and it gets divided into thirds. And then the money all goes out. I mean, those are the like specifics that we as viewers really want to know to get our teeth into. Where did all the money go?
Right.
A lot of money, and they don't seem to have a whole bunch left anymore. I just don't know where it went. I mean, it's in Coyote Pass right now, I suppose.
Right.
Compliments everyone besides Robin and Cody.
Yeah, right. Well, because I think that's part of it, is that as I've said many times on the channel, how you start is how you finish. That's what I tell my kids all the time. And that was told to me years ago by a guy when I was a kid. But how you start is how you finish. And when I think about maybe the mishandling of money might be a little strong, especially in the early years. I just think that again, this is one of those conversations that you want to have especially when you're tying your finances to somebody else, another human being. You want to find out how they spend money. When they spend money, is it important for them to put this money out? Is this an important thing? Or do they put money wherever they want to put it at the drop of a hat? They walk by a store, something looks interesting to them, they just whip the card out and then off they go. And I think that that's one of the things that I could see Cody having kind of that issue where it might not be planned, but because he's riding by the seat of his pants and he's such I'm really trying not to be crazy about it, cruel about it, but because he's so
nice because it's Father's Day.
I know, right? Sometimes it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It's because he's so. He'll get into that impulse. I can see him be a big impulse spender. So when that happens, again, I've always said that a lot of finances are damaged not by the big, huge purchases that people make, like cars or motorcycles, which Cody had, but it's the little twos and fews. It's the lunches that Cody might have started taking because he looked at his bank account with, because if you figure you got 3 incomes coming into a bank account, your bank account looks nice. It looks fluffy. So you sitting there saying to yourself, why can't I go out and get lunch? Or why don't I treat my buddies at the job to happy hour? We go down and grab some entrees and some apps and we'll, a couple beers. Well, I guess they don't drink, but, have like a good time, or maybe I'll take them out or we'll do something for fun. Whereas when you're spending that money, Janelle might be looking at it saying, okay, now we have this amount of money. This is now enough money for us to be able to pay our light bill, our rent and mortgage, whatever you have, maybe get some groceries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we might have $20 left over. Cody might look at that same bank account and say, I can go out and spend $300 on a dinner, really nice dinner with my buddies, because we have this large amount of money. Yeah. And that's just two different ways to look at it. Now I can see where that would drive somebody who is really trying to get, their feet on the ground and then try to get ahead. I can see where that would drive them crazy.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You think you saving up some money every time you put 2 nickels in the bank? Here's somebody come trying to take 15 cents out and get you overdrafts.
Yeah.
So that'll drive me crazy. So I can see that situation.
And now we have Janelle here, who seems like out of all of the wives bought in the most into the whole put it in the pot. Everybody gets what they need whenever they need it. Like she seems to be the one that's like, fine, because she always, made a significant amount of money. And that shocks me. But you have to remember, she's coming off of a divorce into this. It took 2 years. He left physically 6 months into their marriage, but it took 2 years for the divorce to go through. So there was a lot to work through during that time. And I know she ended up with the house. So I'm guessing it came from her side of the family, the money to begin with, because that just makes sense in my mind that, and maybe he was trying to get it. And that's why it took two years, the house she bought. But at any rate, Janelle ended up with the house. Okay.
Right.
So Janelle has this history. So one would think that walking into this now, she has no claim. Once she turns over that money, it's like a gift. Whereas she's got no legal right whatsoever if things go awry to get anything, which is, and then flat forward, look where we are. Oh, Janelle, did that first divorce not teach you? Oh my goodness. But it's not until later that I realized how much she bought into it. But I would think early on, because it's fresher off the divorce and because things are a little rocky right off the bat with her and Meri, that it had to have been closer to the forefront of her mind to think, this is not good for me, that I am just turning over my money. And I don't see exactly how it's all coming down. And somehow we run out at the end of every month, but we should have extra, but we're running out. So I'm glad that eventually they figured out the separate bank accounts was a good idea. I still think that they should have had full disclosure, though. I really do. Like, everyone should have been able to see each person's, like, you have your own money, but they should have been able, well, I don't know. I guess it gets tricky because if you are trying to save up for a surprise or something like that, then that would be accounted for in the ledger, and then it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. But anyway,
because I think you're onto something. Because if we take a step back, you look at like how a lot of relationships that I'm familiar with, how they work. You might not get your spouse's check, right? You might not know exactly how much they're making check to check to check. But roundabout what they're bringing in. You know what I mean? Like, it's not if they pull up with a Porsche, like, what the hell? Like, you stole it? You don't have the money. Like, you know what I mean? You know what they have. You know what they're bringing in. So you know what they can afford, what they can't afford. They start showing up with new stuff. You start packing your bags. Like, I'm not going down with you, sucker. I'm telling. So I can see that. And I think that there's a point where you, like, that honesty portion of it, like just being honest. And then we also have to take into account something that we had talked about previously from Janelle, I think it was in sorority, where she talked about how she would go along to get along, which was how she presented herself. And I think that plays into the whole idea of, if there's an issue with the money, she won't be the one to stand there and say, look, this is what's going on. I have a problem with how this is being done or how that's being done. I put my whole check in. Now all of a sudden I go back to get a little bit of money so I could buy a loaf of bread, so I could have my butter sandwiches. And I find out that you out here eating T-bone steaks. And I didn't get no steak, you know what I mean? So I can see that being a whole conversation. But at the same time, the conflict would come in where Janelle doesn't want to be the one to say anything because she doesn't want to create problems or create issues. But sometimes you just got to say what's on your mind, because otherwise it'll just blow up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that did kind of blow up for them.
Yeah. And that, you can look at what happened to the family. It's kind of a
and what I find interesting about their finances too is right from the get-go, Cody's in sales. Not only is he in sales, but he's in the kind of sales where they could have a month where they bring in almost nothing. So he must be purely commission sales. And so they never knew, he is planning on being the head of a family with multiple wives and a ton of kids, and is making the choice to have employment that's unreliable. Because
Right.
I think that he just lives with his head up in the clouds and thinks, I'll just sell lots of billboards every single month and we'll be fine, until he realizes, no, that's not that easy, and you're not that likable. So it's going to
Right.
be hard to sell your billboard. So instead, it's like, well, his money was supposed to be designated for mortgage, but if he sells nothing that month, now everyone else has to cover up for the bills that he had to pay before. But we'll
Right.
get to that. I don't know if you want to go there right now, where
No, we can because
okay,
I
it's
think
right in this
we're
section here somewhere where they said that if he would sell a little bit more, then oh gosh, all right. Oh, here it is. All right. So when he has months that are not so good, we all contribute to getting that mortgage paid. Okay. On the other hand, when he's having a good month and he ends up with some unexpected cash in his wallet. Now, let's just analyze that sentence for a second. On the other hand, when he has a good month and ends up with some unexpected cash,
right.
meaning they're not expecting him to make anything,
Right.
we can either play catch up from the bad months, or he has been known to use some of it for something fun, or maybe a special trip with the wife and the kids. And that just made my eyes roll when I read that, because I'm like,
Right.
okay, not even if he gets some extra money, we're putting it into rainy day fund, or, here's our fun fund. It's, we're going to spend it right away. And if we have the bills covered at the basic part of them, then he's going to just use it for fun right away, not,
Right.
then plan a trip or take a vacation or buy something or just do something fun. And I noticed how she said that they never agreed to that. She said he would do it. So at the beginning, it was like, we can either play catch up on the bad months. But here's the interesting thing about that too. We can either play catch up. She's not just saying we can pay some bills or pay some bills ahead, or, we can either play catch up from the bad months. So she's admitting we're behind. We are
Right.
not making the bills every month. We are doing that, which probably means they're doing the minimum payment on their credit cards, and they're doing partial payments towards utilities and that, and paying Peter, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, we'll do the electricity this month until the gas. Oh, we'll catch up. And then the next month we'll do the gas. So then we'll take off the electricity and say, oh, we'll catch up with that, and just a lot of fancy finances. Whereas when they got extra money, they could just have the solace and the peace of mind knowing we're paying it off. We're going to be in the green again. I don't know if this family has ever operated in the green. I really don't.
Right.
Because they went and bought
Right.
the mansions in Vegas as soon as they got the show. And so they were in the red again. And they've been ever since.
Right.
Now would be the only time, because the land is paid off. So he has just the one mortgage. And, I in my world, I don't count that. I feel like everybody has a mortgage.
Right.
It's all the other bills. Like, sometimes a mortgage even benefits you. You can write the interest off on your taxes, and it helps when it comes to financial aid for kids going to college and whatnot. So like, a mortgage is, most people can't pay cash for a house. So like, I just kind of push that one aside. So maybe, if ever, now is the time that he should be caught up. But I would love to know, with Robin's spending, where they are, because I bet any money they're still in the red, that they haven't.
Well, actually, I had heard, like, I wasn't quick to report it because I can't verify it either way. But there's grumblings around the campfire that they're actually talking about moving to Cottonwood, Arizona, and selling the house. Because you have to keep in mind that even though they're down to one mortgage, they're also down to two paychecks.
Yeah.
Whereas before they were lumping all of them in, kind of how they were doing early on in the relationship. And I think that this also gets into a problem where if you've ever had a job like this, I've worked jobs like this where you're not sure what month to month or whatever it is going to look like. So the only way that you can actually do this type of job and be maintain yourself is if you work, and when you have good months, you put away.
Yeah.
You put money aside, because you always plan that, okay, well, if next month isn't as good as this month, or I fall short on next month, I have to have my fund, my rainy day fund, to cover my shortfall from this month, where I don't do as well. So that's what I was listening for when Meri was talking about that. Like, oh, okay, yeah, on the months. Because at first, and this is one of the things I noticed, is that when she was writing it out, at first, she said, yeah, Cody was in sales. I worked full time, and Christine worked part time, and we did the kids, and And when we have good months, Cody would do this, that, and the other. And she was very hesitant of talking about when Cody had down months, because it would also be implied that there could be months potentially where Cody wasn't selling anything, and he wasn't bringing any positive income into the house. Mm-hmm. And in that case, I would be remiss if I went and took my money, made some good money on one month, blew it all on good times, fun, and things that you don't have nothing to show for that good check. And then all of a sudden you're sitting on top of a month where you're struggling or you're falling short. So nobody's returning your phone calls, So I think it's that. And then when you listen to it's kind of the jobs that he chose to. Because the fact that, and this is going to come off like a slam, I don't really want it to be a slam, but it's going to come off that way, and I'm cognizant of that fact. But there's something to be said about a guy who goes into a job like sales, because typically guys who are salesmen are shit talkers for the most part. Like, they think they have the gift of gab, that they can always convince people to do things that they don't want to do. And you see a lot of that even later on in season 18, where Cody is talking to Janelle, and he's trying to convince her of something that we all watched on the show. Like conversations that we know that he had. Oh, I never said that the kids couldn't come unless they talked to me. That's not what I said. That is what you said. You said it several times. You said several times that the kids had to contact you. And then, I didn't say they had to apologize. What else would they talk to you about? Everybody in the room knows what you're saying. When the kids have to contact you, they have to bow down and say they're sorry. They have to apologize to Robin. That's the conversation. You need to apologize to me and Robin. That's the conversation. So we watched that, but he started trying to, like, the whole running over her, telling her to stop talking, let me finish what I'm going to say. I'm going to just keep fluffing this up the way I want to fluff it up. That's the earmark of a salesman. And unfortunately, I didn't see the earmarks of a good salesman, because I didn't see where he was meeting her where she was. I didn't see her being able to take her position, understand her position, and give her the thing that she wants in order for her to get that healthy resolution. That's basically what you would try to do in sales, is that you try to meet people where they are. You can't force them to buy something that they don't want. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. But I just think it's funny that that's where he put all his eggs. Like you said, that, knowing you got a family coming, I'm going to be a salesman. With one of the hardest jobs ever.
Yes. Yes. Unbelievable. And we learned early on in the book, was it Meri who shared that he was working 6 days a week from like 8 a.m. until 9? It was something like a 14-hour day. Like, he had these crazy 6 days a week. So he wasn't around much when we were raising the kids. And I'm like, yet that is the worst salesman on the planet. You can put in that many hours. And we've discussed this before. If he would have just gone to Mickey D's down the street at the corner, how much money he would have brought into the family working that amount of hours. My goodness. Just poor. He's never grown up. It's that same notion that he feels like he can kind of BS everybody and say things like you said, like, I never said that. I never said that. But it's on camera now, Cody. I think he's gotten away with it. The salesman part of him worked and he schmoozed and pulled the wool over so many people's eyes, but he can't do it anymore. And so now that's why he's freaking out and so angry and so defensive and all that, because we're like, well, okay, roll the tape.
Right.
I really don't feel like arguing anymore. Let's just see what you said.
Yeah. Because YouTube's a mother. Because everybody's on YouTube. I know I've run my fair share of clips on.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really. I'm not even pointing fingers. I'm saying me. I've done it. I've run my fair share of clips on Cody's ass. So I get it, and it's hard. And I think that there's one part of it that can't be ignored when it comes to his position. And I would say that I get it. The desire to have your own business, the spirit of entrepreneurship. I understand it. I truly do. But the one aspect of it that I think has always plagued him and parts of the family has been the concept of the easy money. Chasing that easy money is the hardest money you can get. Like, hands down. It's the hardest money that you can get, because when you're chasing that easy money, I'm just going to go down, I'm going to have a conversation. I want to be a salesman. I want to do real estate. And when I get my real estate, we're going to take over Las Vegas. Remember, they went down, they were all going to be real estate people. Then he found out he actually had to take a class. He had to take a test, and there was work. He was going to come in. He wasn't going to come in as a boss or a supervisor or as this fantastic real estate person. He was actually going to be working under somebody and had to work for somebody. And he said, no. I want these big commissions, but you're not going to get those big commissions. It's easy to get those big commissions when the market is up and everybody is making money. Anybody can make money. Yeah. Being a real estate agent, like I know a few real estate agents, people who do real estate, not just as agents, but work in the field. And it's one of the harder businesses because, again, in that field, there's going to be times when you up and you have to put aside. You're making crazy money, but you got to put it away, because when the market crashes and it starts to revert to a different type of market, then you struggle. It's a struggle game. So it's a hard business. I mean, you can make a lot of money at it, but it's hard. It's a hard business to be in.
Yeah, and he doesn't know how to put in a hard day's work. Let's face it. Right. His idea of going to work is getting in his car and driving around all day. So he seems to think, well, the paychecks will eventually come if I talk to a few people. The amount of driving he did, I bet was completely unnecessary. I bet he took the places that were as far away as possible, because to this day, his absolute favorite thing to do is to just drive around. Why he wasn't just a long haul trucker, I don't know.
Right.
Loves to just drive. He could have made a lot of money.
Yeah, he'd have made a fortune. Yes. You guys make crazy money.
He could have done medical deliveries from, plant van, or, there's a lot of things if he wanted to stay local and not go across the country. But I think he did want to go across. I think he would have chosen long haul driver if it were up to him. He could have made some good money doing something he loves to do, which is just drive. But you know what? Unless he could take the top down, I don't know if he was into it.
Right. And the crazy part is, if you really and that's one of the things that you have to kind of calculate into, is as you start to move into jobs. That's one of the conversations I've had with my daughter. Is as you start to look at positions and jobs and things that you want to do in the future. I started talking to him early. She's even close to graduating. But, when you get out of school, you start looking at the jobs that you want to go for. It's not just the paycheck that you're going to get, but you want to look at distance. You want to look at time, how much time are you spending in the car, because you want to have a healthy work-life balance. You also want to make sure that you're not putting all your okay, I'm going to get an extra X amount of dollars in my paycheck. Yeah, but if it's too far away, you're putting all that right into the gas tank. And so you're not getting that benefit. And so when you said that about Cody, driving all over the place, the truth of the matter is, it doesn't make a difference if you're driving from one end of a state to the other end of the state 4 or 5 hours away, and so that you can make a couple $100, but you're spending $300, $400, $500 because you're getting a hotel room, you're getting dinner, you're not getting per diem, you're not getting kind of benefit or kickback from your job where they're paying for any of your room and board or or food, entertainment, none of that. You're not getting recompensated for any of that. And you're going to spend all this money so you can make a couple dollars, or maybe you could take a meeting with somebody who might give you the opportunity that you might make some money later on down the line. Forget that. Like, it's just not worth it. As a young dude who doesn't have a family, maybe, but when you start having kids, you got to start making decisions, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it was.
Yeah. Yeah. He's never grown up. You know, it doesn't seem like he learned from his mistakes. It doesn't seem like he's really matured much, even though throughout the book, you see the wives saying, whoa, that was really cool. Like, he's showing maturity now. So
Right.
But I'm like, I mean, how bad had it have been? Because I mean, he's making decisions. You can't even say. I always go, oh yeah, you know, he acts like he's in high school or middle school. But I'm like, when my son was in middle school, he was responsible with his money.
Right.
So I just, you know, like, I mean, he just acts completely uneducated and unwilling to be educated. Is sort of where it seems like it falls for him.
Right. Oh, here's Christian Edwards. Would have been cheaper to buy a small plane and get a pilot's license when he was courting right. And that, you know, it's funny. It's funny, but it's true. Like, it would have been cheaper if you'd have got a pilot's license, rented a plane every other weekend. He would have been down there in a few minutes. It probably would have been cheaper. It damn sure would have been faster. He could have went down there, and it would actually made more sense that he could go down there, maybe spend a day, and then fly on back. So. It wouldn't have been like a whole weekend deal, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
They were talking about like how they manage the bills. The most effective way we have found to manage our money thus far is for each of us to take ownership of certain family bills, whether it's the mortgage, the cell phone bill, or a car payment. Even though the bills we pay may not be technically in our own name, we divide them based on each person's income level. And this is where I had the feeling, like, this is Meri talking, but this is where I had the feeling that Janelle was taking that mortgage, because she had even talked about the mortgage in one of the episodes. I think it was like episode 2 or 3 in season 2. She had talked about sitting down trying to figure out the mortgage and saying, like, okay, I'm gonna pay this more, I'm gonna pay this bill. He said, what about the light bill? Well, I got a little money saved up, I'm gonna go ahead and pay that off. Like, I think she was making the money.
Yeah.
Like, I think Janelle was making the money. So it's kind of weird that they put so much onto the ladies, especially when it came to bringing in other women. You know, like, Cody is bringing in another woman, more mouths to feed, and more responsibility, basically, for Janelle, and that's a hard pill.
And do you notice on those early episodes too, where Robin is most concerned with proving her worth to Janelle?
Right.
It's always Janelle who she's worried about seeing, because she knows Janelle's making the money, and Janelle's essentially paying for her and her kids to be there. So yeah, I was going to do a video about that at some point, to go back and try to put it all together and just show just sort of like the little bits of information that the Browns have told us and put it in order. Taking it out from all the different episodes. It'll take a while to get it all together, but I thought it would be an interesting video, just because we're so fascinated with the finances of Coyote Pass and just TLC money in general, and the family fund. Is it just TLC money? Like, there's just so many questions that we have about all of it, that it would be nice to just go back and grab everything that they've ever said about it and put it together and see, can we make any sense out of this here? But yeah, Robin contributed nothing the entire time. But what's funny in this chapter too is that Meri points out an example of how there are times when there will be a financial emergency, if you will, or just a big strain on the for one particular wife. And in that time, they all pull together and the money then gets diverted to the person that needs it. And her example was when her car's transmission went out. And I'm like, oh, we start all the way back when it was just you and Janelle in terms of having irresponsible that's another video I'm collecting clips for. The irresponsibility of Cody to make sure that his wives had safe transportation from point A to point B while he's driving his little Beamer. I know it wasn't a Beamer, but like
the little Lexus
convertible Lexus that he's driving around, and they're all duct tape holding on Janelle's window, transmissions blowing, and I'm just like, now as I'm kind of going through it, just slowly creating a file and taking clips every time I see another car breakdown.
Right.
And this will just make a really fun montage.
Right. Go, because I think that the whole idea, the precept of I'm a salesman, fits in with the idea of you having a luxury car, because that'll fall. Like, I can hear the conversation. He'll be sitting there saying to him, like, well, I think we should get this Lexus. I think it'll be it's not just a purchase, it's an investment,
right?
Because in order for you to make money, you have to spend money, and people who have money want to do business with other people who have money. So I have to be able to present myself in a way that I'm more their peer, and I'm not asking them for anything. I want to make them feel like they need to be in business with me. That's why I need the convertible Lexus.
I got this great car because I sell a lot of boards, because everybody wants the boards.
Right.
Thus,
and they see that
the car. Although he's told conflicting stories, or at least the family has told conflicting stories about the car. Some people said he got it from that buddy of his who has a used car lot, who gave him a really good deal on the car. And he got it then for the exact reason that you said. But he didn't, obviously it wasn't a new car at the time. And it was such a great price. He couldn't say no. I'm like, well, if it was such a great price, I bet there was a great price on a minivan as well.
Right.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. We're not going to talk about that. It doesn't come up. But then other people say that he won it when he was doing the MLM, where it's just a bunch of products, and he had a bunch of people under him, but he signed up his wives all under him. So that kind of helped put him up to like a leadership level or something like that. So anyway, he got a car that way. But you can win a car and sell your car and buy a car that's 3 or 4 years old. That's still very reliable and going to last you a decade, but not be market price, and have it be something that's practical and functional. And you know what? It can look really snazzy and still be a four-door car that you can at least get 4 other people in it. Or you can get some really cool looking SUVs out there too, that no one's going to look at him pull up in a, very nice tripped out black SUV and go, oh, I'm not going to buy from this guy. Like, that's ridiculous. So
there's nothing wrong with you being a family man, one, because that's what you are. 2, I think the vehicle you're talking about is the Murano. The Murano, like there was a Nissan Murano. They had that in Vegas. It was like kind of a copper car.
Okay.
So he had 2 at the time. He had 2 convertibles. He had the Lexus. Yay, balloons!
Happy Father's Day, James.
Right. Thank you. He had the Lexus that he had purchased, and that's when he was supposed to get such a good deal that he couldn't pass it up. But again, I agree with you. I think that the good deal was, if they have good deals on a lot, they have good deals on a lot. Like if only one car is a good deal, it's a bomb. Like, don't buy that car, run.
Yeah, there's a reason that one is cheap. Yeah.
There's a reason they're giving it away. They're not giving shit away.
Yeah.
Like, get that death trap off my lot.
Yeah.
So you have that one. They probably could have bought something more reasonable, and I don't think it would have affected his sales.
I doubt
it might not have been as fun to drive. Like driving around, that might probably would have been much fun to drive, but you could have got something more reasonable.
And he could have found one with a sunroof in it too.
Right.
Maybe the whole top didn't come down, but he could have had a sunroof or a big moon roof or something and let his little curls fly in the wind like he enjoys. He still could have done that, but No, he didn't. He has this complex of, the more you really study him, the more you realize how incredibly insecure this man is. And he's
Mm.
constantly overcompensating and proving that he's the man. He's the man. I'm cool. I'm the man. And this is just another one of those examples in terms of the car that he is choosing to drive when the rest of the wives, they don't even have enough vehicles to get everyone to come to the hospital when Christine was there, because the kids were under 16 at the time and there weren't enough drivers. And both Cody and Christine were in the hospital together. And it's like, well, we didn't have enough to get everybody up there. And then once the kids came home from school and all that, I'm like, well, you know what? If they would have had one more minivan in that family,
Right.
it would have been perfectly fine. If everybody had a minivan, there would have never been a problem getting kids from point A to point B.
Well, and that's kind of the thing too, because like the weird part about it is that barring like an emergency, like if you have 2 or 3 family members, right, and say one of the moms isn't there, one of the 2 of the moms isn't there, you should be able to move all your kids, like at least in my mind. If something were to happen, you should be able to move your kids in a vehicle if you have access to vehicles. And so it's weird to me that, you're limited by the fact that, like, if all the moms don't have their 4-seater cars, then we're stuck. Like, some of the kids are going to have to stay home or miss certain things, or if there's an emergency, they just go, got to figure it out, guys. And it also kind of goes to the idea too that, what my mom always told me was, when you have a car, like she was more the brick and mortar, like it's better to pay on brick and mortar houses than to buy cars. So save your money, get yourself a house. Don't worry about a car. Because her reasoning was, when you get to where you going, nobody knows what you came in anyway. If you're that pressed about it,
you're the best one-liner, James.
I wish I could take credit for them all, but
they're all mamas, huh?
yeah. If you really pressed about like having like a fancy car, just get a key ring. You go in there with your key ring. Get the Corvette key ring, toss it up on the counter on the bar.
There you go.
Like it's in the shop, baby.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's just where it is. So like for me, I see a lot of that as waste. Like I just see it as waste. So it doesn't give a lot of opportunity for them to be able to secure themselves financially, because they're always kind of chasing a dream. Like I'm chasing the image. And like you said, I think the image of being successful was more important than him being able to provide or take care of his family, which is, and it's not just a Cody thing. Like I think that's it's kind of one of the issues that we have currently with a lot of folks in our culture, just because we're such spenders. And you go on Instagram, a lot of social media, that's what you see. You see a lot of people pushing money out, wasting money. So
yeah, that's true. It's another example of him not being the man. That could be a whole separate video too. Here's Cody thinking he's the man in all the ways, and then here's Cody not being the man. And one would be that he didn't have enough vehicles, that if one person was gone, that the rest of the family could get in them. If there's an emergency, if there's a fire, if there's whatever it is, you should be able to get everybody piled in and everyone have a safe seat to sit in to get from point A to point B. And 2, the vehicles that he did have, were beat up cars that kept breaking down and whose tires kept popping. Like that's not just an old car, that's irresponsibility. If your tire is going to explode on the road, you need to replace your tires before they get so bald that they're going to explode on the road. I mean, it's boy.
Well, especially if you even go from there, like my concern would have always been, and one of the things that just was screaming to me as I was watching them do their Great Escape to Vegas, and they just kept having blowout after blowout. Like they do a lot of highway driving, and it's one thing for you to, I'm running to the corner store and I have a flat tire. That's one thing. But if you're on the highway and you're traveling at excessive speeds and like there are people on the highway and they're not slowing down, and you have a blowout, you could flip a car with a blowout. Like, it's dangerous as hell. So the idea that he had his wives and his kids out there running around on bald tires because you're more interested, like, you should have sold your car. If it was like that, sell that damn white car and buy tires all the way around and get yourself something reasonable.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
because otherwise it's just dangerous. It's dangerous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Makes no sense. I just recently was recording that actual episode, putting things together came across that, and I'm like, oh, there's plenty of content in this episode to put into a video of Cody's irresponsibility and making sure that and and then putting the wheel, like, oh, I'll just replace it, but then the lug nuts end up breaking, which means he either did it too tight or too loose. Like, he didn't put it on right, which means he never really learned how to properly tighten a lug nut and change a tire. It's like the basic man things that you do if you have a family of that size, he doesn't do.
Just take care of yourself. Like, because I think with that, he put a wheel on from one of the other cars, so it was the wrong rim, and it sheared the bolts. Like, it was like, oh, it's 5 and 5, okay. I was just throwing on that. Like, the wheel size may be different. Like, it's not. You want to make sure, but it's just everything is such a rush.
Yeah,
and like, there's never a moment where people just say, let's take a second, let's take a beat and figure this out.
Right.
And you weren't running from the cops.
And in that episode, that's what eventually ended up happening. The wives were all talking to him, and Janelle's like, the next exit has a hotel. We'll just spend the night. We'll get the tire in the morning when they open with that. And he's like talking to the camera, like, and then the solution was really simple. We realized that you were told by your wives. That's how it went down.
Right.
You kept fumbling and screwing it up one after another. And finally they're like, let's just go to sleep. You've got hungry kids in the car here, and we're done with this trip.
Right.
We're going to spend the night, get the tire fixed in the morning, and then continue on. And he made it seem like it was his brilliant idea.
Like, we thought about it. Yeah, your brains thought about it. You were ready to make more mistakes. And I do that sometimes. Like, especially if some things get a little too crazy, sometimes it's just best to say, you know what? Hell, I've worked on my own cars. Like, I have an old car. I have a 2004 Honda, and I drive that damn thing, and I keep saying, like, if this bad boy ever break down, I'll go buy a new car. But if I can fix it, I'm not going to buy another car.
Right.
So I can fix it. Like, that's the problem. I can fix it. But if I ever hit a thing, like, I learned a long time ago, if you're working on a car, just from my experience, you working on a car, you hit a pesky bolt, you hit a nut or something, I can get a little stronger. I'm a little stronger than some folks. But, don't go crazy. If it's not coming, hit it with some penetrating oil, take a break.
Yeah.
If things start looking like, you sit down and like it's not looking right, before you grab a torch or something to cut something off, take a beat, walk away, go get something to eat, go watch a show, do something else other than this, and then come back to it. Because once you do, like, you keep trying to make these mistakes, these fixes, you just put yourself into a situation where you're so far behind and you're so deep in the dumb stuff. And I think that's where Cody was. Like, you just need to stop. Like, okay, we had 3 flat tires. This isn't working. Let's stop. Let's stop. Make sure that the tires are good. We're going to take a break, because what I don't need to happen is for us to get down the highway going 80 miles an hour and one of the tires blow out and I'm losing a whole carload of kids up in the tree somewhere. So we need to stop. We'll regather. You can stay at the hotel, get one of them, like them shady ass hotels. You know what I mean? The murder motels.
Yeah.
People, they kill an insane clown posse and can just roll up to the front door and go stay at one of them for the night and figure it out. Look at it in the daytime.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah. It's crazy to me, because those are life-threatening decisions, potentially, that he's making by just willy-nilly not paying attention to the car maintenance of all of his vehicles. And like you said, being frenetic when it comes to trying to repair it on the side. He probably did put them on way too tight because it was the wrong tire. So he's like, let me just make sure it's really tight so it doesn't come off. And then now he's not able to get them off again.
Yeah, let me just so we can get, and that's not even that's the thing. Like it drives me crazy because it's not even like he was saying, "I want to tighten it up enough so I can get home."
Yeah,
like we're 2 minutes from the house. I just need to get everybody home so that they could be safe. I don't know. I'm going to drive 200 miles and I want to rig this car like. with duct tape and rubber bands,
right?
Like you crazy ass, you gonna kill yourself.
And was that the spare from another car? It had to have been. So it's a spare to begin with, which you shouldn't drive that many miles on to begin with.
Right.
But it's not even the spare from your car.
Right. And even like I tell most folks, like the donuts are not meant to. Like I think a donut only has a maximum ride time of 50 miles, like top end. And technically, if you start to get close to like the 50 mile, like you put a donut on a couple times, you might want to start considering switching the donut out. So for him to plan on driving from Utah to Las Vegas on donuts, like I mean, you out there on bicycle tires at that point, bro.
Yeah,
like, you got 10-speed tires on the back of a truck going up and down mountains, like just dumb. Like it's dumb. Shout out to Teresa Skinner with the 1999 super sticker.
Oh, thank you, Teresa.
It says, "You are amazing." Thank you, Teresa. You are amazing. Oh, she also had something I wanted to point out too. Chasing a dream is like a dog chasing their tail.
There you go.
Because dreams without goals, you'll never accomplish. You'll never accomplish a dream if you don't set goals and benchmarks. You'll never accomplish. Just stay a dream. You know, but yeah. So we talked about like speaking of kids. Meri also talked about the discipline portion of it. This is something we alluded to earlier when we first started talking about it. And he said, "It has always been very important to me that our children grow up with a strong sense of respect for both people and things. When the kids were young, I tried very hard to instill this in them. I wanted them to respect one another by playing nicely together and getting along. I wanted them to respect their parents by being obedient and not talking back when asked to do something. When I see one of our children do this, it sure gets my Irish up." I read that, and the words that ripped off the page to me was obedience. And I say that because I get it. I'm one of the older guys. I get it. Like we always have this fantasy that, you know, when I was a kid, the children didn't talk back to the adults, and the child stayed quiet and they knew their place, and a lot of that. But we had rebellious kids. Like, we won't be honest, we had rebellion when we were children too. We had kids who could talk back to their parents. Wasn't a lot of them. A lot of them weren't my friends, but I know they existed, you know. And so it's not a new thing. And when you talk about your kids being obedient, one of the things that stuck out to me, like, because I started watching, and I want to do a video about it, this 7M Shekinah thing, like the dance with the devil. I want to do something, maybe do some videos about that, but just my take on it. And one of the things that sticks out to me about when you teach your children to be obedient, you teach your children to be subservient and submissive, then you have to be aware that you're preparing them to be obedient and submissive to somebody else when they step in and take your place. That's what happens. You're creating a child that's going to be like, I'm not saying, you know, kids talk back to you, talk crazy to you in your house. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that you don't want to create a child who is going to just somebody come in and tell them to do something that's not in their best interest. They do it because somebody told them to do it.
Yeah.
And when I hear like a lot of that, like I'm not a big fan of, like, I don't mind discipline, but I don't want my kids, or I don't like to see children being broken. You know, I also started watching a show called Unexpected. And I want to do it. I'm gonna have to make a comedy thing about that because it started getting me pissed off. Like, it was crazy. But they had one kid who told his girlfriend, this Jason, this last season, he told his girlfriend when she was in labor that she doesn't need to get a epidural. In fact, he told her, "You're not getting an epidural because that's drugs." And when she said, "But it hurts," and she had been in labor for 48 hours by this time. And he told her, she's screaming, she's hollering. She said, "I'm in crazy pain. I need the epidural because I can't do it." The doctor is telling him, "Look, if she doesn't get the epidural, she's not going to be able to push when it comes time for her to get this kid, to expel this child." He said, "I don't care." And he wound up getting put out of the hospital. And then she gets out of the hospital. She apologizes to him for her being so weak as to take care of herself. And so when I hear things like, you know, obedient and following orders and stuff, that gets my Irish up. So that's what I think.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah. But like I said, he had her pop. Like, man, when that happened, I was like, I don't know how you people are in your seats. Because he had this young lady apologize to him for her wanting to get an epidural to take care of herself because she was in so much pain. He told her that she can't have her parents in the room. He proceeded to get himself kicked out of the hospital because he was being like he created such disorder and started yelling and screaming and stuff. He wound up getting himself put out of the hospital and then blamed her for him getting kicked out of the hospital. She apologized for that. Then he blamed her because she got the epidural. And she apologized for that. He told her that she can't have her parents in the room with her, and she would have to have the baby by herself. And she was 16 at the time. She was going to have the baby by herself because he couldn't be in the room and he didn't want anybody else around her. So I mean, it's just like, so when I hear people say that they're going to basically break their kids or not teach their kids not to talk back or talk up or speak up for themselves, that's what you have to balance that out. Like, I'm not saying that you want them talking crazy to you, but at the same time, you can't take their spines away. You have to be able to give them the ability to speak up for themselves. But that's
funny story, James. When I was, when you're pregnant with your first child, of course you think it's all going to be natural and it's going to be the best. And, you go through Lamaze and they say, of course, what's best for the baby is, oh, yeah, I think I can do it. I'm pretty tough. Right. Well, 17 hours into my labor with my first child, when I finally gave in, and I had it on the video, the whole, like, what led up to me giving in and just saying, yes. Epidural case. I kept saying no. And I do remember saying at one point to the nurse when she came in, she's like, "How are you feeling? You're still in the window." Because there is a window that will blow you on the window and doesn't matter. And it's going to get worse. So she's like, "You're still in the window." I'm like, I remember looking at her and going, "I think I can do it. If it doesn't get much worse than this, I'll be okay." And she goes, "Oh, honey, it's going to get way worse than this." And so I was like, "Huh?" And I'm like, "Well, let me see." Then I went a little bit more, and then I ended up biting my husband's arm. And so around that point, when they're like, "Well, do you think that you want to have the epidural?" And he answered before I even got a chance to say anything. He's like, "Oh yeah, she's ready." she's
yeah.
And I've got the wounds to show you right here. Go ahead and get it. I'm like, yes. So anesthesiologist walks in, has his cart with him, and he goes, "Hello." He goes, "The candy man is here."
Right.
It's like, bring me some candy.
Right. Get your ass over here. Stop talking. What are you talking for? Yeah, because like you said, that window is weird because they do say that. Yeah. And the crazy part is that when they start talking about the window, usually the pain is like from a 1 to 10. The pain is around like a 4 or 5. You know what I mean? And because I remember looking at the chart, the contractions or whatever.
Mhm.
I remember looking at it like, oh, that pain is like a 4 or 5. But by the time you get close to actual delivery,
Mhm.
that chart is off the paper.
Mhm.
Like,
I
it's
couldn't
gone
even
for a minute.
imagine. I could
Yeah.
not wrap my head around. I mean, God bless women who do it. I got to the very end of the window. It was like the third time they came in and said it, and I'm like, yeah. Like it's gonna get much worse than this. I'm all in.
Yeah.
I'm all in. But yeah, I can't imagine whatsoever. But yeah, like it gets to the point that they can't give it to you because then you're not going to be able to push. It's too close to
Right.
when you're going to have to push that little
To do
puppy
it.
out.
Too close to showtime. Well, because I also had a thing too where because I was a big proponent for it, just because my whole thing was there's no point in you suffering.
Right.
Like, why are you going to drag yourself through all that suffering? Because you're going to be in enough pain. Like, there's plenty of pain to go around.
Yes.
So you'll have more than enough pain. But why are you going to, why would you do that to yourself when you have an option to get some relief? And when I listened to that little boy say that, it blew my mind.
Yeah, it's like brainwashing you that you'll get the red badge of courage at the end. Like that's how I felt anyway. That's how my Lamaze classes went. That it was very much like you're giving up if you can't do it. Like you're not quite as tough. But everyone has, and it's true, everyone has the ability to, because clearly for hundreds and thousands of years they didn't have the drugs that we have now. Like I don't know, they probably had plants and who knows, cocaine, all that kind of stuff. They were chewing on stuff, I'm sure of it, to get through. I'm 100% sure. But yeah. So that's, for me, it was just sort of like, that you've given up on yourself. So hopefully the Lamaze classes are doing a better job these days of saying like, listen, you're okay. This is why I tell I've told both my girls too. I'm like, don't even think twice. When you have the opportunity, just say yes. Trust me.
When they come in and offer it, just go ahead and take it.
I'm telling you this before you go into the Lamaze class, so you can take everything they say and filter it through just in case you're told the same thing as me, which was almost like you don't have an option. If you're cool and if you're tough and if you love your baby enough, you won't put drugs in your body and you'll have this natural. And so I was just sort of like, okay. Like, but when when
get my mama badge,
you don't care. And I'm like, I don't care about the badge. I don't care about nothing. I just want to survive this night. Get me to the other side.
Because that's always been my thing. And I know we're kind of getting a little far afield, but that's always been my my thing too, is that, being in a first world country in modern times, it escapes a lot of folks how dangerous childbirth actually is. Like childbirth is insane. It's insanity. It's insanity how dangerous it is. And so, like, one of the things that, like, just to talk about this dude just a scotch more, one of the things that he wanted to do, because he wanted to control everything, he had insisted that his girlfriend go to a birthing center as opposed to going to a hospital. And so he insisted on going to the birthing center. When they get to the birthing center, they like to get your clothes off and they want to check your see how far you're dilated, right? To see how far along you are, how close you are to actually pushing the child out. He refused to let them check her. No, you can't check her. No. You had the people there had to try to guess how far along she was with the length and duration of her contractions on how far she potentially could be dilated. Then they made mistake after mistake after mistake, which is why I think her labor was actually so long. And then when they get to the hospital, he's still arguing. Like, and it's just that thing where at some point, even as the person involved, you have to recognize that, I understand you want to be there for your child and all that, but you're putting a person who is important to you, not just your child, but your significant other, you're putting them in danger. Like by doing it. And I think something that happened with the baby, like it was, thank God she went to the hospital, because he was talking about after they got put out of the birthing center, he wanted to go home. He wanted to take her home so she'd had a house, the baby in in his basement. But I was like, you can die.
Yes.
Don't play around. This is nothing to play with. This is nothing to play with.
That's right.
You know. So, but
well, we were talking about Meri and the kids. What stood out to me in that section too was about her furniture. And I know not everyone agrees with me on this point, and I will acquiesce to that. And everyone has their different opinions on this. But she was so proud that nobody could jump on any of the furniture in her house. And she said, I know I've not always been looked too highly upon by some of my sister wives because this makes me seem too strict, but my furniture has definitely outlived some of theirs! Exclamation point. Right. And like the first time I read that, I'm like, so did you win? Like, because your furniture lasted longer? Like none of the kids were all scared to like go through your apartment and to, and they always had to sit properly in their seats and all that. But your furniture lasted longer. So, okay. But then she doubles down a little bit later on and says, I remember a time years ago when Cody was sort of getting after me because he didn't want all the kids to feel like they were walking into a museum when they came into my house. So Cody made this observation too and talked to her about it. And she goes on to say, I think, however, that he has mellowed somewhat about this opinion as he has seen that my household furniture has lasted longer than any of my sister wives.
Right.
So, like doubles down and says, and I even got not only did all the sister wives not like it, but my furniture lasted longer. And then Cody came up to me and said, listen, everyone feels like they're walking on eggshells in your place. You need to ease up. But my furniture lasts longer. I think that he's proud. I just wrote like the value of the kids being comfortable in your environment to the value of how long your furniture is going to last. Is sort of what we're comparing in this situation. And it just almost struck me as funny to read it.
Yeah.
The fact that she doubled down about that again too. And I'm like, you're losing perspective. I think if she would have had more of her own, she might have, well, I don't know. It's hard to say, but she may have eased up a little bit on that because you just have to. The more kids you have, the more you have to like just let go of this. If you have to understand when you're a parent that everything in your house has a potential of breaking. You cannot have anything out that is of really significant value to you. It must be behind like a glass cabinet or curio cabinet or something. And protected because kids will run around. They will knock into furniture. Balls will get thrown around. And, and we weren't even allowed to have balls thrown around in our house. But it happened at times, well, I don't, I live where there's a lot of winter snowy days and you can only get out for so long with young kids because you got to go with them. And then you get back in and then they like go crazy again for a while. It's like, you can't just say, go outside and play. So yeah, it gets maddening. It's like, all right, well, just for 10 minutes, we'll put a timer on 10-minute ball time. That's all I can handle. I don't like the idea of this, and a light bulb will surely break during that 10 minutes. And, but it is what it is. And I feel like because she had one and because she had a girl, and I think Mariah was just, at the time, Mariah Leon now, was just obedient and probably very similar to how my girls were. My girls were very different than my boy when they were young growing up. My girls very much would love to sit down and read a book to their stuffed animals and play together and, creatively play and come up with schemes with their dolls or whatnot. Whereas my son was the little Tasmanian devil running all around the house and going in circles and all that. So, I feel like it was probably more overwhelming to her. And I understand that. We had friends come visit once and I say there's no balls allowed in the house. After I gave birth to, I don't know if it was my second or my third child, one of my girlfriends came over and she had 2 kids and they were a little bit older. And then she had a young one as well. And so they were visiting for a short time. And in that time, her son was like running around and climbing on the couch and over the back of it. And like my kids were allowed to, if they wanted to jump on the couch, they could jump on the couch. It's okay. But they had to do it in a certain way that I knew that they weren't going to be falling off the couch.
Right.
Like, you know, we can do it if you hold on to this or you do that, you know, like it must be safe in order to do it. And he was just like parkour, even though he was only 4.
Right.
And I was just like, my anxiety went to like a 19 when he was there. And then I was like hearing these noises and there were these balls. Remember they used to have those color balls that you would put in a toy and they would spin and come down, and then you'd put another one at the top, and they were all these, they'd have these different levels. So my kids had a couple of those that were all different sizes and different kinds. So we had a lot of those little plastic balls, and he's whipping them across the room, and it's like hitting the fireplace, which had like, you know, like the little tile below it, and then it was glass on the fireplace. You hear the clink, 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 clink. I thought I was going to lose my mind. This is not behaviors that ever happened in my house. So I flash back to that when I was reading this in my attempts. You know, as I said, I was trying to be sympathetic to Meri as I was reading through this. And my instant reaction when I first read it the way through, and even when I read it this time, was like, okay, what's more important? You know, the kids are happy and comfortable in your home, or your furniture is going to last for an extra 5 years than everyone else's furniture. Who cares? Right. But I also understand that when you're not used to certain behaviors, and she didn't have rambunctious boys, whereas Janelle did, they come as a group together, especially, it had to have been jarring for her at that moment.
Right.
That being said, she was also with them since they were born. So it's not like they were visiting.
Right.
Like, and then I flip back and go, she should have known better.
Well, because I think that there's that point where, well, I think that, like, one, I do agree that it's easier to maintain a lot of your possessions and things when you have one, because there's a light year difference between having one child and having multiple children in the household. Because more people is just more wear and tear. It's just natural. But I also think that I can see a world or a universe where the kids come over, or more to the point, even her child will go over to one of the other wives' houses to spend time, because that's where the kids are. So they're going with their friends. Like her child will go with their friend, or their friends, or their brothers and sisters. So they're always out of your house. So you're able to maintain your house because nobody is there to mess your house up. You know, and you just keep that rule. But it does create a scenario, and I think that like the whole mention of the furniture, that was her attempt, because she had already talked about like the finances. It kind of rung to me that this is like her attempt to say that I was financially responsible because I was buying furniture and my furniture was lasting. So I didn't have to waste that money and divert that money into buying or replacing new furniture. She likes, like they always said that she had expensive taste and she likes nice stuff. So I could see it, you know, she might go out and buy more expensive furniture for her house and be more particular about who's jumping around her house, because she doesn't have little, you know, and there's also that part too. If you don't have little kids, then you're telling them like, you can't jump around my house. I don't have little kids here. So I got the little glass figurines, you know what I mean, on the glass shelf. You know, whereas you would never have that with toddlers in the house, you know, or babies.
Absolutely.
But there was a point where she started talking about Meri accuses Christine of being extreme to her child, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, again, this is the pre-strike, right?
Right. Like, oh, Christine's kid said I was rough. So she was rough to my child, but she says it was an unwritten rule that whichever mom was at home with the kids could use her best judgment on the discipline needed for individual situations. We were all pretty comfortable with this, but occasionally we disagreed. In one instance, I was at work and Mariah, that name Mariah, Joel, needed to be disciplined, so Christine handled it. When I heard about it later, I was fine with the fact that Christine addressed the problem, but disagreed with the way she punished her. I felt it was inappropriate and a little extreme. We discussed the issue, and while she might disagree with my opinions on discipline, she was very respectful of my feelings. So she lays the groundwork that, when Christine did it, I understood and I might not have understood, and I supported her position, and I felt that, she was doing the right thing by addressing it. So we talked about it later. Then, then she says Christine disagreed with Meri's parenting on a camping trip. Meri cites a camping trip where things became too aggressive for me to brush aside any longer. Now, in my mind, these two instances are kind of far apart. Like, these aren't neighboring instances. So, like, she got back in the Wayback Machine in order to talk about Christine, in order to set it up for this particular scenario.
Up for this one. Yeah. And this one she had to talk about because it was on the show.
Right. So she says, Christine disagreed with Meri parenting. On a camping trip, things became too aggressive for me to brush aside any longer. A few of the boys were picking on one of the little girls and making her cry. I had enough of it. I got after the kids, telling them they better shape up and start treating one another with more respect. I told them that Robin's kids are their siblings, whether they like it or not, and they better start treating them like it. As I was speaking, like you said, this is something we saw on the show where she didn't realize she was being taped. As I was speaking, I noticed that Janelle and Christine just stood there and didn't say anything to back me up. I felt betrayed, strong word, betrayed by their lack of support. I feel strongly that adults in the family must show a united front to the children so they know we're all in this together, and we will support one another's decisions. I think it is very detrimental to let children think they can play one parent against another, but not all the wives feel this way. In fact, later on, Christine told me she thought I was completely out of line for speaking my mind at the moment. Did you have thoughts about that?
I have so many.
Okay.
First of all, I completely disagree with the line that she inserted there saying, I think it's very detrimental to let children think that they can play one parent against each other. There was no playing one parent against the other one here. Meri got upset with something she saw, and she spoke to those children about it. So nobody was playing one against the other at all in this situation. So that was an unfair comment for her to say.
Right.
And for her to also say that Christine stood there and didn't back her up, that it showed a lack of support. I think a lack of support would have been Christine saying, okay, not right now, or I'll talk to him later, or, she would have said, she didn't. She was silent, and she let Meri parent in that moment, even though she was there, and she could have taken over, or so Meri, I'll handle it. Don't worry about it. That would have been overstepping her bounds, I think, based on the structure of their family right there. I think it would have been wrong when these kids, and you saw their faces, like Peyton's face looked like he was almost going to cry when she was yelling at him, when he's just standing there staring at her, and she's like, you need to be nice to yours, which is fine. They do, and maybe they, because we didn't see the incident, maybe it was completely justified. She didn't hit them. She wasn't abused, like she yelled. It was aggressive, it was an intense yell, but if she was up there yelling at him, it would have been, in my mind, so much worse for another parent to come in and go, yeah, what she said. You don't know what you're doing. Like, that's not how this should have been handled at all. I think the fact that everyone remained silent, let Meri complete and finish out what it was she was saying in that moment was appropriate given the situation. So it really angers me that them allowing her to discipline their children when they're there themselves and they could have done it, and for them not interfering, because clearly if they would have thought whatever the offense was severe enough to have a scolding in that given moment, they would have done it because they were there. So they had every right to tell Meri to sit down in that moment, but they didn't. They let her go ahead. So I think they actually provided Meri a lot of grace in this situation by letting her play it out. And for her to turn it in this book and come back and say that they betrayed her and it's not a unified front, and now the kids are playing one parent against the other. Like, I'm like, not true, not true, not true. I'm not agreeing with anything she's writing in this. And then at the very end, she said, Christine told me that she thought I was completely out of line for speaking my mind at that time. Perfectly acceptable thing to do. Just what you did when you were upset how Mariah was handled. Afterwards, you talked to Christine about it and you talked through it, and like you agreed to disagree, but you handled it appropriately. It sounds like Christine did the exact same situation. Later on, outside of the view of the children, Christine addressed you and said, I don't like how, like next time, let me handle it because I would be parenting them in a different way. So I just got upset with this whole thing. I just feel like she was harsh enough with the kids in that moment that she didn't need a backup gang of players to be like, yeah, what she said. How many times you keep doing this? This isn't right. Like, that's not how you treat kids. I mean, that's how it was in our family too. Like if my husband was yelling at the kids for something that I thought was kind of not a big deal, I didn't in front of the kids go, it's all right. They, let him go, like, I was just like, okay. I mean, cause he's not being abusive. He's just like, that's what he's feeling in the moment. And then later on, I'm like, okay, where were you in that moment? And of course it ends with you're talking to the kid, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's move on. And then you make sure the kids are okay and everyone's all right now and we're moving on. And so, I mean, I don't think he ever got as aggressive as she did when he, but he just never really spoke up as much to the kids. So when he raised his voice, like they were kind of like, that's all you have to do is raise it a little bit and the tears start to come, especially with girls. So, but in those moments, like I was sure I would have done exactly what Christine would have done. And that is like, okay, I don't think this is necessary here right now, but I'm just going to not say anything. I'm going to let him handle the situation. And then we'll talk about it later on and figure it all out. And I'll also make sure that the kids are okay and that they understood Dad still loves you. Dad never raises his voice. Well, he did today because he was angry. So let's not make him angry like that again. What did you do wrong that you could change? What can we learn from this? So I don't know. That was my take on it. The whole thing just bothered me because I think that it was handled well. And if anything had to change, it may have been the way that Meri was yelling out at them in that moment. But then again, I don't know what they did. I don't know if they hit the girl, like I don't know what precipitated this reaction from Meri. That's where I come from anyway.
Well, I think that there's a couple things. Like, because I agree with a lot of what you said. Like, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The things that I would add to it was Meri had talked about how she had originally noticed this thing had been going on, right? You notice that this thing is a problem and you don't address it. You don't bring it up to the other parents. And then if you did bring it up to the other parents and they didn't address it, if you step outside that and you decided, well, I'm with the hell with it, I'm going to do it. And you step outside of that, then if you don't talk to me about, I'll do both sides of it. If you don't talk to me about something that you've noticed for a long time, then you want to bring it to my child's attention in my presence, and you haven't talked to me about it, then we're going to have a conversation about that, because that's something that I need to be in the loop about. Like, I don't mind if they're doing something wrong. I don't mind you saying that they're doing something wrong. I try to call balls and strikes. If they're wrong, they're wrong. And I'll tell them they're wrong. And they have to deal with the consequences. I have no problem with that. However, if it's something that you're noticing that's a persistent problem, then you should come to me and talk to me about it so that I can address it with them in my own way. And then maybe I can head a lot of this issue off. That's the first thing. The other side of that, if you notice that this thing has been going on and you don't talk to me about it, and you want to start yelling and screaming and hollering, we might have a problem on that front. because I need to be included. I need to know what's happening as well.
Mhm.
You guys, you helped to raise these kids, but clearly, even though the kids grew up with you, clearly each one of the mothers is taking a predominant role as far as parenting for their particular children.
Yeah.
It's not we are family, we're all one village. The truth of it is that Mary's child was Mary's child, Christine's kids were her kids, Janelle's kids were her kids. You all helped one another, but at the end of the day, when the rubber met the road, the bottom line, mom was mom, and everybody else was just kind of mama's friend. So, with that being said, if you have an issue, if she didn't, like you said, if she didn't say anything, that was her supporting you. Like she could have came in and said, "Peyton, kids, get over here. Let me talk to y'all."
Yeah.
If she could have pulled, if she wanted to undermine you, that would have been the easy way for her to do it. Guys, come on over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you can stand over there and yell at yourself.
Yeah.
You're not talking to my kids. You know what I mean? That would be an easy way for her to do it. She didn't talk to you about it. She waited till everything was over. Then she addressed it with you and said that she disagreed with how you went about it.
Yeah.
And someone had mentioned that when they were talking about it on the couch that Brianna, the young lady who was getting picked on, was kind of doing like the playing wolf a little bit. And Robin's kids were supposed to be more sensitive. So I'm not sure who was wrong.
Yeah.
And then if Meri was angry because she was friendly with Robin and it was the other wives and she had that allegiance, so she was trying to lean into it a little bit more, yelling and screaming. Like I don't know. I think that if you're going to do it, the best way to do it is to make sure everybody's on the same page. And like you said, even though you may be disciplining them, me being on your side and presenting a united front doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that you do.
Right.
I may disagree with your position. I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't think they were wrong. They can't be there acting like this. They went to they were talking to Brianna and little Gwendolyn cussed out. Well, I don't appreciate her cussing, but she needs to learn to stand up for herself.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's appropriate. Well, I could care less. Story time. I remember there was this one time. My daughter, she was going to this one daycare. I want to pull her out of it, but she would go to this daycare, and every day she would come in and she would tell me that these little girls was picking on her. And I told her, I was like, don't do anything, because I taught her boxing when she was younger. Just exercise. I wanted to be able to at least know how to throw hands a little bit. So I was like, don't do nothing. That's not what that's for. You try to talk it out. Talk to a teacher. Things get heavy. Talk to the teacher. Let the teacher know. I went in, spoke to the teacher. And then things progressed. I was like, they can say whatever they want to say to you. Just they can't put their hands on you.
Right.
It's like, and if they do, you just stop them from hurting you, or you get yourself to a position where you're safe. You're my priority. Get to where you're safe. There was one day she was at school, and one of the kids in the school went to try to put their hands on her. Big mistake. And she did some things to him. And his little boy. And then the teacher, I come in to pick her up. Teacher got the paperwork talking about, she's in here. She told us that if you told her that she could hit people back. I was like, I told her that she could defend herself. I also told you guys that this was what was going on, and this was the situation. If you don't want to deal with the situation and she has to resort to dealing with it, then I have a problem with you because you put her in a position where she had to defend herself. Yeah. This isn't a thing where I'm going to sit here and yell at her and chastise her because she didn't allow somebody to punch on her and beat on her. I'm not doing that. So, I told her that if somebody put their damn hands on you, you stop them from putting their hands on you. So, but the whole thing was, like I said, it's just a difference of how you go about things. I'm not a big fan. Like I refuse. I refuse, and this is I'm about to go crazy, but I refuse to let my children, especially my daughter, be somebody's punching bag. I refuse to do that.
Yeah.
I absolutely refuse to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to allow her to come somewhere and be walked on, talked to, stepped on, mistreated so that somebody else can feel better about themselves. That's not what I'm raising at my house. So with that being said, if you have a problem with that, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
You just going to have a problem with it. I'll sign whatever paperwork you give me. And I bet you they going to happen twice.
I remember my husband told my girls the exact same thing. He's like, you never put your hands on anybody. You never hit anybody. But somebody hits you, free game.
Right.
You're not in trouble. You might get in trouble at school, but we don't even care.
Right.
So mom and dad will go in there and whatever it is. But you have to understand, if you hit back, you may end up in detention. There might be consequences at the school. Just want you to know, if you defend yourself, you're okay.
Right.
You're okay.
You have no problems with this one. You have no problems with this one.
I'm like, okay, I guess that's the rules.
Guess that's how we doing it.
That's how we're doing it.
Because I don't
became an issue. So, whew.
Right. And my whole thing is that I never wanted to have an issue where I'm sitting there trying to talk to her or explain to her that, you know, this person or that person is so important to her that she has to allow this to go on. Like I'm trying to put the building blocks in place. Right. And this is, like I said, one of the things that I talked about earlier with the whole idea of like obedience and servitude and all that. I don't want her, like, if she wants to grow up and be a housewife, I don't care. As long as it's her choice. Yeah. I don't care what she decides to do, but I want it to be her choice. Yeah. I don't want somebody else making choices for her. And I don't want somebody else feeling like they could tell her what to do, how to do her body, she should allow to have happen to her body. If you don't want somebody putting their damn hands on you, you have the absolute right to tell them to keep their hands to themselves. You have the absolute right. And for that, I will go into school. And we will have, like, if it takes both of us to go back to back and lay clowns out, then that's what will happen. Because I want to go to the mat for that. I'll go and have the conversation with whoever is at the school. But you need to keep yourself safe. That's always been my thing. So, like, with those type of activities, I can see, you know, and I can see a situation where some people may disagree with that. And that would be, if I was in a relationship with them and we shared a child, that would be a point where we would have to have a disagreement. Something happens, then it might be a conversation between the two of us. But again, that wouldn't be something that they might not come right out and say to the in front of the teacher, like, "Yeah, teach, he's a maniac," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I was thinking of as we were talking about this is, on the previous page, she talked about giving punishment to the children and that she would choose a punishment that fit the crime, basically, for each of the individual children, which I'm perfectly fine with. You know, like, you don't need a severe punishment for a tiny task and a smaller punishment for small. That's fine. And they all had the right. But what bothered me was what she didn't explain, as she said, you know, and she gave examples. Okay, if one child hit another child with the toy, they couldn't play with the toy anymore. Okay, that's fine. If a child didn't clean up his room, that child could not go outside and play with the rest of the kids until they went back and they got their whole room clean. What I want to know is, was the stage set for these children in advance? Were these rules made very clear and the consequences clear beforehand? If not, it is cruel punishment. If the kids are all playing and their rooms are supposed to be clean, and, you know, like, one's interpretation of clean is going to be different from another interpretation. My son's interpretation of clean, even my two daughters, very different interpretations of what is clean in their rooms. And so, you know, when one thinks their room is clean and the other, you know, it looks very different from the other one who thinks her room is clean. And so if Meri goes into it and says, your room's not clean, it's time for all the kids to go outside and play, you're not, go back in there, keep working on it. To me, that's mean. you're giving a punishment and withholding all this, and they think that they did what they were supposed to do. Or even if they didn't do it to the best of their ability and they knew it wasn't up to snuff, but they thought, okay, I'll clean up, I'll put some things away, and then I leave. However, if Meri had clear parameters of, before we go out to eat, your rooms need to be clean. And if your rooms are not clean, by the time we're going out to eat, you will not go out to play with your siblings. You'll go back to your room and you'll clean it.
Right.
Then I'm fine with it. Then, okay, by all means, that kid misses out on playing with his siblings that day because he knew clearly. I just don't know that all of that information was always given to the kids up front. So I feel like Meri was, in her mind, thinking she's delving out the appropriate punishment to fit the crime. But the consequences of those crimes were not explained to the kids who are young and don't understand a lot of the stuff. They don't have the adult brain. They didn't think through all the steps, and that if I don't do this, this might be one of my possible consequences. Kids just don't think like that. They're impulsive. They just like, okay, I'll follow your instruction right now until I get distracted and I'm doing something else over here. But if they were told ahead of time, there will be no going out to play if your rooms aren't clean. Does everybody understand? Yes. Do I have heads nodding? Yes, we all understand. Okay. So if your room's not clean, maybe ask your brother and sister, does this room look clean to you? You know, like get it all set up ahead of time. So I feel like Meri may have felt like she was always doing the right thing, whereas the kids were then running back to their parents and going, I didn't get to go play with my siblings today, and I was told I had to stay in my room and make it look even better than it was. And then, so then the parents are like, well, that's not right. That's not, like I wouldn't do that to my kid in that situation. So I feel like there may have also been just sort of a lack of understanding of general parenting strategies and in terms of raising the kids and disciplining them, which is where Meri's coming from in this chapter and doing a lot of defensiveness now, because I think in hindsight, she's reflecting on some of the choices she made and would change them, as we all do. I've made mistakes, and we all make mistakes as parents. We all have things we wish we could take back, or things we wish we wouldn't have said in the moment, or ways we would have handled situations differently. But I feel like it's harder for her because she might have those things, but I've gone back to my kids and I've had conversations with them and said, do you remember when this happened? I really feel bad about that still. I shouldn't be carrying that with me, but I don't like the way that I handled that, and I'm sorry for that. I don't think Meri has that ability to make those amends, or, I hate the terminology. She doesn't have the words to say. I mean, she has the words. She doesn't, she doesn't have the maturity maybe to be able to be willing to humble herself, to use the words to put herself in that situation. And along that lines, I think also she would go a long way if she could learn to truly humble herself and feel regret and be willing to be that vulnerable with her sister wives and share her remorse for decisions she's made in the past, because I really believe it would mend the relationship between Meri and Christine, and maybe even Meri and Janelle. I don't really understand where that one went awry. It seems like it was never good to begin with. So I don't know. But Christine and her were close at one time. And I really had such high hopes of OG3 coming together and being friends again in the afterlife, the post-Cody era. And I mean, I still do. I just have pie in the sky ideas of how lovely it would be if they would all be together. But I don't think it'll ever happen if she can't do that, because I think Christine's caught on the fact that her kids are still hurt by it.
Right. Well, because I think that there's because even tapping on one of the points that you made, you said that when the kids need to have certain things explained to them, like cleaning the room, they might have difference of opinion as far as the room being cleaned, like one child to another child. I would take it a step further and say that one parent to another parent could have differences of what cleanliness is. Like, for instance, if you have 6 kids, your definition of clean might just be there's nothing on the floor that people could trip over and kill themselves.
That's right.
Whereas her definition of clean is like deep cleaning every Saturday and Sunday, you wake up, you dust everything, you vacuum everything, you take everything off the shelf, wipe it all down and put it back and dust. And it's a whole day affair. Like that might be your definition of clean because you're at a different stage. So if you can't agree amongst each other, and I can see a situation where, Mary's yelling at the kids because the house is dirty or whatever, and it's not clean. The room isn't clean to their, her standards. But then when Janelle comes home and she listens to her kids explain, like, look at my room. And she looks at the room like, wow, this room is the cleanest it's been in weeks. And she's like, I don't understand why you mean it's dirty. This room is immaculate, So there could be differences there. But I think that, again, like, I agree with the fact that these are things that you have to talk about with the other parent. It's not enough that you just feel like this is something that you believe and therefore this should be the rule and you have to back me up. This is something that we all have to agree on, especially if it's not a life and death situation, if it's not a situation where somebody could be injured and it's just merely like parenting tactics on where you're going to go with it. That's a conversation. That's something that should be talked about prior to incidences happening. And with regard to the little girls or Robin's kids, like if there's a problem with Robin's kids, you need to, like, the adults should get together and have that conversation amongst each other. Like, I noticed that this is going on with the kids. Like, they're mistreating Robin's kids. Even do it, Mary to Christine as opposed to Mary Christine and pulling in Robin. Just do it between the two of you. Where this is what's going on, so that way you're kind of on the same page, especially when you're talking to and dealing with somebody else's children. Like that's my thing. Like you can, it's always a point. Like that's always kind of a soft point. And again, I grew up in a generation where it takes a nation and a village or whatever to raise a child and all that, and you can get yelled at and you can get pulled up by one of the neighbors. They come out and they see you cutting up. They could come outside, pull you up, and then take you back to the house. And my mother would have no problem with that, listening to one of the neighbors complain about something I'm out there doing, especially if I'm out there acting a fool. But I don't think my parents would appreciate if one of the neighbors came running out of the house with a belt or a switch, talking about they're going to take it to my hind parts because they didn't like the way I was riding my bike or they thought I was outside making too much noise. Like, you understand what I mean? Like people have different levels, so that could have been a whole incident. So it's just
perceptions.
Exactly.
When you were talking about that, it made me think. I had like a friend. You eventually get to figure out as you're raising kids who are your people, who are the people who kind of parent like you do, who are generally on the same page. Now they didn't get a choice in the matter, but most moms do get a choice. You kind of see what it's like. So I started getting uncomfortable at the houses where it looked like, it was a China shop and everything was perfect. And the house was like all immaculate and that. And I'm like, just to make it passable, you don't know how many hours I put into this before this play date today. We're in a very different situation over here in this house. And I just remember one of my girlfriends saying to me once, she's like, oh, that, the house was a mess or something like that. And I said, oh no, mine's like, it's continually, I'm like, I'm just constantly picking up. I feel like I'm the only one picking up after everyone, including my husband. Like, I just feel like this is what I'm doing constantly throughout the day and trying to fit work in between, because I was working from home at the time. And my girlfriend said, she goes, we have a rule in our house that there's no socks are allowed in the kitchen. And I was like, what? And I said, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, the floor is so sticky that if you're walking with socks, they stick.
Oh, wow.
So we just go barefoot through the kitchen. And I laughed so hard. And I'm like, okay, I like you. And you just got to find somebody who's one level lower than you. And then you're like, okay.
Right. Like, I'm winning.
We can walk with socks on my kitchen floor. So I'm an okay mom.
You're right. And thus reality shows were born.
There you go. This is how it is sometimes. It's guerrilla warfare in raising these kids at times.
And that's what, and even speaking about that, because there was one point like where the differences in how they dealt with the kids, they were talking about dating, and like just the differences in how you deal with each child. And what Meri wrote was, she said, I'm a fortunate position with Mariah when it comes to dating. While she has shown some interest in young men and looks forward to dating in the future, she is committed to remaining in our faith and living our plural lifestyle. With this belief comes her commitment to remain virtuous and chaste until marriage. She holds high expectations and standards for herself concerning dating, kissing, and intimacy, and she has every intention of living up to them. She plans on finishing high school, go on to college, and work towards her dream of becoming a doctor, and has said many times she does not intend on getting married until she thought the last few years of college, getting through the last few years of college. Yeah.
Easy to do when you're not attracted to men.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of a weird thing too, because earlier she had said that, you know, you have to judge the kids because there's some kids you feel more comfortable dating, and then other kids that you wouldn't feel as comfortable with them going out. So you have to treat them a little different. I don't really have an issue with that, because I think that you have to take each child for what the child is, as opposed to like, I'm going to treat you all the same, because they're not the same. Everybody has different needs. However, like you said, with Joel, like, there is so much that there are so many hints in that I think it showed kind of a like, I talked to Sarah and Amanda about this very issue. Like, it's kind of sad because I think Joel latched on to the religious aspect so hard because they were trying to deny who they were, so they just encase themselves and get super involved in like the religion and the faith. And if I do this, then I'll be able to get a man, I'll get married, and I won't have to deal with them because I'm gonna just throw other wives at them, and I'll just be out doing my thing. You know, and it would be a way for them to be able to cover up the fact that they're not interested in actually having these types of relationships.
Absolutely. She was the only one, they were the only one that wanted for sure to live a life of polygamy as a teenager. There were a couple that were like, maybe. Aspen's like, maybe, but I don't think so. And there were, and I think even McKelty at one point was like, well, maybe, but I don't think so either. And the guys were like, yeah, I don't think so. But this was a different situation, and it's almost uncomfortable to read, and for two reasons. On one level, Meri's pretty braggadocious in these three whole page, basically. It's three full paragraphs, all about how great, how strong the faith is, how, I don't have to worry about my child. It's just on and on and on as you're reading this. And I'm like, ooh, this does not age well. If you go back, because there was a whole undercurrent that she did not see at all going on here. And then on the other side of it, it makes me very sad for Meri. Because she was so unaware of really what was happening. So she's thinking, and she even writes in, we have this special bond, and we have this, she had no idea what her child was actually thinking throughout all of this. So and then it makes me sad because Meri felt like, oh, they're so in tune, and they're so, and it wasn't that at all. It was actually almost the opposite of that. So on the other hand, it kind of made me sad to read it.
Yeah. Well, because there's also like the source of denial. There's the and one of the things that like always bothered me, because I've seen like comments when I'll comment on things with Joel or whatever.
Leon?
And one of the things, Leon? Oh, Leon. I keep calling. Why do I call him Joel? I don't know.
That's another four-letter word.
I'll stay calling him Joel though. But
I wasn't sure what you were talking about at first. I'm like, oh shoot, I missed what he was talking about. Who's Joel?
Right. Who the hell's Joel?
We're talking about Leon. Okay.
Who's this Joel person? One of the things that bothers me with Leon is just the fact that they had to stay hidden for so long. They had to deny who they were. But one of the things, like as a parent, one of the things that would bother me would be if I felt like something was going on with my kids, especially something that was that important to them, and they felt like they couldn't come to me and talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Like that would bother me more than anything else. Like I don't want, like I've had that conversation like, oh, if this is what you are, then it is what it is. But I don't always want you to feel like you can come and tell me. Like I'm not going to judge you or disown you or put you out because you're doing whatever. Like I just want to know, because it's not just I want to know because I need to know. Is I want to know because if this is who you are, then I want to be a part of your life. And so in order for me to be a part of your life, I have to know what it is you're going through, who you are. Like I want to know who you are. And so it's a shame that Leon kept that hidden for so long, because to a degree, Meri didn't really know her daughter, her then daughter, but she didn't know her child as well as she thought she did.
And when you go back and look at it too, Leon came out to all of the sister wives and the dad all at one time. Meri wasn't privy to that information before that. Meri was shocked and like really didn't know how to react. Like, so you can tell this was not on her radar whatsoever. But that had to have been hurtful too. I mean, luckily Leon didn't talk to Robin about it first, because oh my goodness, we'd never hear the end of that. Because we just read in the last chapter how Robin is just so, the kids keep coming to me and I'm the special person who they can share things with. And so luckily that didn't happen. But I am sure that also had to have been, on top of the fact she had no idea this was going on inside Leon's head. Also, Leon didn't feel close enough to Meri to sit down and talk to her first and say, in this meeting that we're about to walk into, I just want you to know this is what I'm going to share. Or in the future, I'm going to, or however, everyone found out at the same time. And that had to have been hurtful to Meri too, just in general. And then also to the knowledge of, I thought we had, as she put in here, this very special bond and, this link that the two of us have that's unique and special, and we really know each other. And she's just this, special person looking for the right husband, but she's going to hold out until she gets that degree because
school is so important.
No, so all of that went by the wayside. So that had to have been a real blow for Meri during that time, and probably also why it took her longer to recuperate from it, because I'm sure she was recuperating from the information in general, which was such a shock and not on her radar at all. And then also from the realization, I don't have the connection with my child that I thought that I did. And so it was had to have really blown her world up, because this is her only child too. Everyone else had this plethora of them, and she's like, this is my one. And I'm not that close as I thought with the one that I do have. So that had to have been hard.
Well, because I think that there's because even with that, I'm cognizant of the cultural difference. Like there's a cultural difference for their faith. So I can see that. There's also, as much as parents try to be understanding with their kids and what their kids choose to do, there's also a certain level of expectation that parents have when it comes to their kids. So they want for their kids, like they want to go to the wedding. They plan, like when your little girl is born, there's certain things that you look forward to. Like as the dad, you're like, okay, I'm looking forward to daddy-daughter dances. I'm looking forward to, her meeting her first time she brings a guy to the house and me, making him uncomfortable. Looking forward to the first time, when she gets married, walking her down the aisle, or even before she gets married, the young fella coming over and asking me for permission to take my daughter's hand in matrimony or whatever. And these are things you look forward to. Having children, like being a grandfather. These are things that you look forward to. And then in that instance, it feels like all that is gone now. So all the things that you have planned for yourself are gone. But at the same time, this is that part of parenting where it becomes difficult, because as parents, we just have to recognize that even though we created this life isn't ours to live. It belongs to them. Like, it's a gift. And as my parents used to say, don't give something to somebody that you don't want them to have. So if you give it away to them, it's theirs to do with what they want. So it's their life to make decisions about. It's not up to you to make decisions for them. Life would be. Imagine how easy it would be if your kids do exactly what you tell them to do. What school to go to, study, what majors to take, what they should do professionally, who they should marry. Your life would be easier. Their life would be miserable because they wouldn't get anything they want. But as a parent, it'd be fantastic. It'd be all sunshine and rainbows. But that's not the relationship that you have with your kids. So I see, like, I don't want to come down too hard on Meri for not knowing, or even her reaction when she was told, because Meri was in shock. Like, she was not happy.
Yeah.
Robin jumped up and gave Leon a big old hug. But I also understand that there's a big difference between somebody else's kid doing something and your kid doing something.
Right.
It's easy to support somebody else's kid doing something. Oh, I'm open-minded and they're doing this and I'm okay with it. I support them. But when your kid comes in there and says that same thing, I want to hear the same, I want to see that same energy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's easier. And it was her only child on top of it. So, like, I still think it would have been easier for one of the other wives if one of their 6 said, I'm coming out. And at the time it was gay, like, I'm gay, it's like, all right, Meri now in that moment probably thought, there goes all the grandkids and everything that I saw my future, like, everything is going down the hill. Not that they couldn't adopt kids. Of course they could, but like, I'm sure she had visions of Mariah's going to marry this nice strapping young man and they're going to have 7 children and I'm going to have all these grandbabies because I couldn't have children myself. And so those grandbabies, I'm going to now live vicariously through them. So, like, I think her whole dream started fizzling out in front of her eyes at that moment, whereas somebody else would have been, like, maybe shocked, but, like, the entire dream of what their future looked like wouldn't be blown to pieces. Because one of the children did something they didn't expect, whereas her whole world did something she didn't expect.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the hard, like, again, I understand. I understand it. Like, I get it. Because, again, like, a lot of stuff that Meri might have kind of assuaged her own insecurities about not having a lot of kids. That's okay, because when she starts having kids, I'll be there for her kids. When she has a family, Meri was struggling with Cody. When she meets her husband, I know I'm gonna make sure that he's awesome and he treats her well, and she's gonna have the best life. So I get to live almost vicariously. And this is where a lot of parents kind of, in my opinion, this is where a lot of parents kind of struggle a little bit, is that they try to live vicariously through their kids. And that creates a problem. What the hell?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second. Do you hear that?
I hear no, you sound the same.
No, do you hear somebody talking?
No.
Hold on a second. My thing kicked on my
You gotta take a phone call for a moment here, James.
Yeah, right. It sounded weird because I run a Mac and my iTunes popped up, and I had some recordings on there, and so I hear myself talking.
Oh.
So I'm like, what the shit?
Yeah, it didn't come through.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't hear it.
Yeah, but it was so I get it. And I think this is one of those instances where this is the one time where I can see having a multitude of different perspectives come in and talk to you about some of the things going on with your kids or whatever could be helpful. Because I do think that it kind of helped. I I think it kind of helped
I
pass
was
it
just
for normal.
responding to her.
The gremlins, yeah, right. Because I do think I think Robin's response actually helped Mary, or at least for the show. I don't know if it really helped her as far as getting past everything that she had learned, but I think it helped her get past it on the show because she was gobsmacked when Leon came out and dropped that bomb on her.
Yeah.
Mary didn't know what to say.
No.
Like I think like because I've seen that before. Like a parent find out their child is different than what they thought they were going to be.
Mhm.
So they thought they were hetero. They come out homosexual.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden, the parent has a sense of embarrassment. So I have seen that before. Where the parents are. It's not just like they're upset per se about the child being part of the LGBTQ plus community, but they're also embarrassed now. And then the fact that it's on TV, that could have been an additional thing as well.
Yeah. She had cameras there on top of it. Gee,
that's what I mean. Like that's
like a triple whammy.
Yeah, that might have been something that she's like, okay, we're not telling nobody this. So I mean, again, I give a lot of people a lot of credit on that front. Like I give Meri credit because her reaction was her reaction. Mm-hmm. But I also give a lot of credit to Leon because it took a lot of courage for them to come out on TV. A lot of people had struggle coming out to their parents in the living room. Like she was on TV saying, "This is who I am." So I respect it.
Yeah. When somebody was writing in here that they felt that Robin, what was it like, just kept manipulated Meri throughout. That comes up later on this page. They start talking about the food, and the portioning out, and how basically, if I were to wrap up everything she says about food, she basically is saying the other sister wives feed all the kids junk. Chicken nuggets and french fries and cheap, fast, bulk food. And myself and Mariah, we prefer fresh vegetables, fresh fruit,
right.
homemade stuff. We have nothing processed in the, it's sort of like, and then we live this way, which is easier to purchase and prepare for when there's only the two of you, and one of you is often at another house eating dinner, as she admits. If any child is at another house, is more than welcome to eat when they're in that house. That's the open rule for everybody. But it sounds like nobody was ever coming over to Meri's house.
Right.
She was having events, holidays, birthdays, to open up the house for everyone, which is why she wanted to have the big house. And she was having the little kids over to share her swimming pool while the older kids went to the other pool. But other than that, she said basically Leon liked having siblings. So would leave and go to one of the other houses and hang out with them there. But at the end of that, after that kind of whole conversation about how we eat so great, which came right off of the conversation about my daughter's so wonderful and spiritual. Let me show you what her plans are for the future. So I'm like, I don't know. She should have piggybacked off of that at this point. I mean, we'll see what happens with food in the future.
Right.
I have no idea where that is with either of them right now. But she goes into saying how Robin and her kids, because the kids basically weren't over there unless the older kids were all at Janelle's swimming in the pool. Then sometimes the younger kids would come to her house, i.e. Robin would go over there and probably pick up Truly on her way.
Right.
And bring her kids over to Meri's house to play. She adds that at times Robin and her kids would join her for dinner, and that these evenings with Robin happened with and without Cody present. And I enjoyed both equally. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because I am starting to see a trend as I go back, and I wish I was doing it in order, and I'm not. I'm kind of jumping all around, just spurred on by different ideas. And then I find myself watching a different episode. So my continuity is not great in terms of these 18 seasons. But there have been multiple times where I notice Robin infringing on the other wives' times, that she happens to be present when it's like their time, then she'll all of a sudden be there. Meri mentioned that before. I just think it's great that there are times when Cody's here at night and Robin will bring the kids over and we'll all sit together and watch a talent show that her kids put on. And I'm like, wait.
Right.
This is your night with Cody. And you're saying how
Right.
great it is that Robin brings her kids over and you're all fawning over her kids. And, you know, and her story was to show how close she is with Robin's kids, which is great. And I hope she is. And I hope she really enjoyed it. But what I don't think she realized is Robin was just trying to get more time out of Cody by palling up with Meri and being her buddy, and Meri, lonely, is like, yeah, come on over. So Robin was very easy. And so here's a second example of Robin infringing on Meri's time with Cody.
Right.
She comes out, well, at times she'll come over and we'll just have dinners. And yeah, it'll be Cody will be here too, but it's okay. I enjoy that too. And I'm like, oh, you know, you're being played, Meri. You're being played.
Right. We'll be hanging out.
Yeah.
The only time she come over is when Cody is over. Then there's your sign. I mean, there's your sign. And then I also take into account, because I noticed that as well, that she even talked about how Robin had offered the whole, you know, give her a baby and carry a child for her and Cody and da. And I couldn't help but recognize the fact that, one, this is before they were in those houses, because remember they were talking about the pools. The pools were in those rental homes that they had in Las Vegas when they first got out to Vegas. Two, this is well before Robin got married to get that divorce for her. So I think that a lot of this, like there was a fattening up of the sacrificial lamb that was happening before the big ass came in. Like, oh, we're such close friends. We're such close buddies. If you notice, your friendship kind of petered out soon after you got the divorce.
Absolutely.
Like as soon as she got what she wanted, all of a sudden she's not coming over anymore. All of a sudden she doesn't make her way over there for you guys to have these happy days for you to watch the stuff. There was also a point there where she said that, where Meri had said that Robin had received two playpens or two baby toys, and instead of taking it back and changing it for money, she took it and put it over at Meri's house because Solomon was going to be spending so much time at Meri's house.
Yeah.
Then I also remember the time when Meri came over and asked Robin for Solomon, and Meri looked her in the face and said no. And this is after the divorce. You know what I mean? Because she was like, oh, me and Solomon are so close. Meri, me and Solomon are so close. Maybe Solomon will take a ride with me and we could go down to Padawan. No, I don't think he wants to sleep over anybody else's house because he don't really know you. Like, what? You know, what? Yeah.
And he was like 4 or 5 at the time. He was like around kindergarten age at the time.
Right.
Ariella was already born at the time. And for her to ask that, and then Cody to say in that scene, well, he's never slept over anybody's house. And Meri's like, that's not true. He slept over my house once.
Right.
And I'm like, once in 5 years? You were talking about, like, I've got baby clothes, I've got a jumper, I've got, you know, like, I've got everything set up. Like, her idea was he would be over there all the time. Well, that wasn't necessary because the nanny came into play, which, can I tell you that nanny was there for it was over 6 years, and she still couldn't find a substitute teaching job that Robin kept insisting was the reason that her niece was there, because she wanted to get a substitute teaching job in Vegas. Mind you, anybody can get a substitute teaching job in Vegas and start working that afternoon. Like, you probably don't even have to clear any of the clearance that you go through. Like, oh, we'll run the police records and your fingerprints later. We just need somebody in the classroom today.
We need a warm body,
We don't have a teacher right now. Their teacher is out, called in sick. We have no subs. So, and she had a teaching degree. You don't even need a teaching degree. You just need a 4-year degree. With some college, I did a video on this, and some people were saying from their states, you didn't even need a 4-year degree. You just needed a 2-year. Like, they're so desperate for substitute teachers in this country that
Mhm.
they will do anything to get a substitute teacher. And for Robin to straight out lie and say, well, the reason we have Mindy is just because she's moving to the area and wanted to get a substitute teaching job. So we were, this was something for her to do until she could find a substitute teaching job. And now I'm watching as they're getting ready to move. And Robin's like, oh, we're going to miss Mindy, who's not coming to Flagstaff. She's been with us for 6 years. I'm like, 6 years? And she still couldn't find a sub job.
Right.
This lie, again, is not aging well.
Well, maybe she was looking for a job in the same place Robin was looking to get her job.
Exactly.
Apparently, she's still looking.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Robin
might
must
be
have been
looking in the same
advising
one
her
again.
where to go. There's the
Right.
problem.
So it is what it is. But I do think it's funny, like even talking about like the nanny situation. Like I think it's funny that if you are saying that you needed to have a nanny because you couldn't take care of your kids, then wouldn't that same person be okay with a woman who's supposed to be the child's mother also taking the child as opposed to you kicking money to the nanny? If she's willing to do it, why not just say, man, nanny, you can have the day off. Meri is taking Solomon for the day.
Two of them.
I mean, I would
Christine
think.
was hurt. She told her that it hurt her feelings and that she couldn't believe that she was going to hire a nanny. Oh, I'm only doing it because she's looking for a sub job. I'm trying to help her out right now. Just lies. And then there's Meri with this big house and all the apparatus that you would need for a child, and wanting to have more children on top of it, like desperate for the love and attention of all these little kids. And she's withholding it from her because she has to have the nanny so she can work.
Right. Well, you know what? Because even that promise, the promise of, I'll carry a child for you and Cody if that's what you want, because I know that's what you want. And she gave her that huge promise. Robin gave Meri that huge promise. When she said this, and this is on me, this isn't necessarily on Robin, but my dark side was saying that she's full of shit. She doesn't plan on carrying this child for her. So it kind of worked out funny to me that Cody went to Meri when Meri was Cody was talking to Meri on that rock face, and Meri was ready to tell him, yes, I want to go through with Robin carrying this baby for us. And Cody looked her in the face and said, yeah, no, I don't want another baby with you. Basically, he didn't say he didn't want another baby. He said, I want another baby with you. And then when she went back and told Robin didn't had a surprised face like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. I was so willing to do this. She had to look when Meri was like, oh, I was ready to tell Cody that I wanted to have the baby. And Robin had that, oh crap. But he said he didn't want it. Oh, okay. Oh, isn't that too bad?
Are you sure? It's that same look that she had when she's like, I'm going to do the divorce so you can marry him.
Right.
Are you sure? Like there wasn't the what? It was, are you sure about this?
Right.
Try to force the fake tears that never came.
Well, and that's another thing, because what's funny to me is, and I kind of hang my hat on this as well. How you start is how you finish. And usually people try to stay consistent. Like that just speaks to consistency. There hasn't been a time where something has happened that Robin felt strongly about that thing, that she wouldn't go back and talk to Cody or whoever she was having an issue with. If she felt strongly about this thing, it's funny to me that she was willing to give them a baby. And when Meri came to her and said, I wanted to do it, but Cody doesn't want to do it. Miss, I'm committed to the big family. I got married to the big family because I wanted the big family. Miss, I'm not the only one with small children. We're all got these kids because we got these small kids to raise, and I want everybody to be mothers to my kids. Why wouldn't you want to say, no, Meri, we're going to go talk to Cody. Me and you are going to go talk to Cody because I want to raise my kids with my sister wife. And I think it would be so awesome that this would actually be, think about it like this, at least from my perspective, that child would actually be the Trinity child, because it would have the genetics of Meri and Cody, and Robin would have carried her or him or her and delivered them into the world. So that would have been all three of their children, their child simultaneously. There would have been a stronger bond anywhere.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it wasn't strong enough. She just didn't feel the strength to go fight that fight for Meri.
Yeah.
So I just think that's funny.
Yeah. And thank God in the end, right?
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, Meri would still be there with the family. That would
Right.
be the thing she would hold over her to the very end, as like one of the things that Meri wrote in here when Meri said, where is it? Oh, whenever I talked to Robin about this. Okay, what were we talking about? Oh, empty nesters. We were talking about being empty nesters, and she was talking about Mariah's getting ready to go to Utah for college in the future, and I'm going to be an empty nester. I have to figure out what my place in this family is going to be again. It's going to be a new chapter in my life, an evolution of being a sister wife. But whenever I talk to Robin about this, she is so cute. She says, "You still have kids, Meri. You still have kids." She insists. I'm like, yeah, she insists. She's been insisting that you stay a part of that family. Right. Even throughout everything that went on, and Cody saying, "I don't want you and I'm not coming back." And Robin's still insisting, no, right. We're still sister wives. Don't give up. I can tell that there's a part of him that still wants you. Like, yeah. So that started all the way back here. Meri already started planting the seeds of, I don't know what my place is here. I don't know what I'm going to do. And Robin started right away from the get-go. No. I'm having these kids and they're your kids too. So it is shocking that the two of them didn't together decide, let's go this extra mile because this will be the guarantee. I don't think they had enough foresight to see how things were going to be playing out in the future. I think in the end, Cody thought he always would have Robin around his little finger because, the catfishing thing hadn't happened yet. So there was no indication that she would leave him. Right.
But I will say this. I think that in their assessment of everything, that she wasn't going to give Meri that child. Because if you, and again, this is my conjecture. This isn't something that Robin has said. I'm just saying, on the dark side of this particular scenario.
The dark side of James again.
Right? There we go. But if you look at it, if you're in Robin's position, she wants to be the first wife. She had Solomon. They get out to Las Vegas. She has Solomon to cement her position within the family. Because at that time, when she's running around with the family, she's on the show with the family is making good money, but technically Robin doesn't have any claim to any parts of the family. If Cody would have said, "You know what, Robin, I'm done, Dada, it's over," Janelle, picks up stakes or whatever, Robin wouldn't have any recourse at all because at the time they didn't own any property.
Yeah.
So the easy way to do that is for her to have a baby, Solomon. She has Solomon. Then she started thinking to herself, we're doing well. We're about to come out with this book. I think it was actually the book deal that got them the houses in Vegas. I think it was the book money that got them the houses in Vegas. That's my thing. It occurred to me as I was reading through this chapter. So they're talking about getting these big houses, this cul-de-sac. And she says to herself, I want to be the first wife because if Cody's name is on all these properties, and it manages somehow, I want to make sure that I am legally entitled to half of Cody's assets. There's a huge stumbling block, and this is where it gets dark. I did all that foundation to say this. It becomes a huge stumbling block for her to get her legal marriage by asking Meri to get that divorce if she would have gave Meri a baby. Because if she would have gave Meri a baby, I don't think Meri would have divorced Cody. I don't think she would let him out of the marriage because Meri would have been thinking about protecting herself and protecting this newborn minor child that she now has and she's responsible for. So I don't think she would have got the divorce. So in light of that, I think that Robin might have looked at it and said, I'm not giving her a baby. I'll offer it, but I'm not giving her one.
Do it.
Right. And again, I'm with you. Thank God. With all that being said, thank goodness that they didn't have a baby, because it just would have been way more complicated even now as Meri is moving on from the family. And hopefully, and like, don't get it twisted, I'm hoping that she finds somebody that makes her happy. I'm hoping that she finds and gets into a relationship that fulfills her, that she's attracted to them, they're attracted to her, that they have a bang up time with each other, that they enjoy each other's company, and they ride each other to the grave. Like, I hope that for her.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of that would have been possible if she would have had a baby. So sometimes,
true.
Things happen, and you're sad that they happen the way they happen, but it's in your best interest that it happened the way it did.
Yeah.
Because she would have got screwed.
Wouldn't it be interesting too if Robin decided to go rogue on that and she offered that and Cody didn't even have any idea about it? So they had a private conversation where he's like, "Hell no."
Yeah, right. Are you crazy,
woman?
He might have said that too. You know?
Yeah. We need to find a way to pull this back now.
Right.
Thank you. No, I have to do. Yes. I have to do cleanup duty when I go on this trip with her.
Now I got to be the bad guy, because I'm sure that was one of the things too. Like when Cody looked at it, he said, "I want to have more kids with my wife. Like you're my new wife. I'm excited about this relationship. I want to expand this relationship. I'm not trying to go back." Because he was already having problems with Meri. So I can see that. And then there's also the like with the whole idea of Meri offering Meri out and her accepting, like, it's just like, I just think there was the offer itself, unless if you're not planning on doing it, is extremely cruel.
Yeah.
It's an extremely cruel thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meri got played a lot throughout these seasons.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. But did you somebody has sent me that interaction too? Like, I don't know if you saw, there was a podcast. I think it was last week.
Meri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's still defending Cody in that podcast.
Of all podcasts to do, the only way I didn't know that person had a podcast. I can't think of what her name is, but the only way I know that lady is she's the one that was having the affair with Tiger Woods when his wife found out and did the smashing of the car that day. That
was her?
That's her. And she has a podcast, and that's who Meri chose as the person. And she knew nothing. Did you listen to it?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm like, did you do any research? Like on this, you claim that for a whole year she was trying to get her on the show, which means, she was probably trying to get all four of them, and everybody else, and whoever's working for her was just reaching out to anybody and everybody, just come on the show. So Meri's the one that acquiesced in the end. But I'm like, Meri needs a better team. She needs a little guidance. I'm like, I don't know. This is out of all the possible people. Meri, James and I, we would love to interview you.
Right. I'll talk to you.
We will ask you intellectual questions. We know the history. We're not going to ask you dumb things about your past. We know. We watched the show. We read the book. So we will ask you thought-provoking, intellectual questions that people really want to know the answers to.
Right.
Yeah, I just found it weird. By the end, I think she did a lot better. I think there were some good questions at the end that were on her list of questions that were kind of like, Meri didn't answer them really, but they were good questions. So at the very end, I felt like there were some zingers that were going, but the whole beginning of it, like I just started doing laundry while I was listening to it because I was getting too frustrated. And I'm like, I can't listen to somebody who has no idea what they're talking about, ask questions that we all know the answers to. And, and then have Meri not even give straight up answers. She didn't know the name of her church. What? The A&B, she's like, I don't think it has a name. It's just, people who get together and celebrate Christ or something like that. And I'm like, yes, it does. Christine's father started it. Your sister. Right. It was the conception of it. Are you kidding me? Oh my God.
We call it church. And then after church, we go to bar.
Yeah.
And after bar, we go home and play with dog.
Oh my gosh. Then I was like, okay, so the interviewer doesn't know what to ask because she doesn't really understand the whole story. And Miri's not giving truthful answers at all about anything. So I don't know if there's any value in this. Somebody did ask me to review it. And I'm like, I don't know. I have to go. I'll have to try to go. I was too emotional, I think, when I listened to it the first time. I'll have to go back and listen to it again. Because I do remember thinking at the very end, okay, that was a good question. That was a good question.
Yeah, she talked a lot about the
non-answer. But maybe if I listen to it again, that there is something I can glean from it. Otherwise, my whole review is just going to be slamming the interviewer, which I don't want to do because, she's trying. I just don't understand the purpose of that being the podcast that you're going to choose. I don't know.
She got the juice to get her on, but there was the like she talked about the catfish. Like I think that was where she started anchoring in a little bit more because she was talking about the catfish and then she was asking her questions how it got started, and they had a whole back and forth about the deception of and the unfairness of being catfish and how it could be damaging to your psyche and that kind of thing. But the thing is that to have or engage in that conversation, you don't necessarily have to watch the show. It's just that she has a position on catfishing and they were just discussing their positions on catfishing, which is where, at least that's what I saw like towards the end of the thing where it just started getting a little more coherent. Before that, it was just basically, do you like yellow? I love the color yellow. Do you like blue? Yeah. That kind of stuff. Just general questions.
Yeah.
But one of the last things I had for the chapter. Well, I guess two things. Like one, like you mentioned the whole thing with the teenagers coming over to the house. I thought it was interesting that you had all these accoutrements at the house and the kids chose not to hang out there. Like that says a lot. Like the fact that the kids didn't gravitate towards you, and you were one of the OG3, so that says a lot. And it's not necessarily shot on Meri. It could just be that Meri, if she's indeed the disciplinarian, nobody hangs out with the disciplinarian.
Well, yeah. Now the kids are old enough to make a choice. So, like, you made your bed, and now you got to lie in it.
Yeah, nobody hangs out with the disciplinarian. Well, I will say this. I will say this. When I was a young man, my parents weren't crazy strict. They had rules. Clearly, my parents had rules. They weren't crazy strict, but they had rules. And I used to buck against the rules because I had friends whose parents were very, you could do what you want and bring people, it was the Wild West at their house. And I was so jealous of some of my friends coming up. But when I think I graduated college and I started working, and I had to go over to my parents' house and I had to thank them. You know what I mean? I pulled them aside, like, I want to thank you guys for being as strict as you were. I know it was hard. I know I made it difficult for you, but I appreciate you taking the time to make, put rules in place and enforce those rules, because it just made me, help me to achieve the stuff that I wanted to achieve or set out to do. So, I mean, I think that there is a comeback for you actually having rules, especially as your kids are go out and they, when they start having a family. But the crazy thing about having kids, Happy Father's Day. One of the crazy things about having kids is that you will find yourself saying things that your parents used to say to you. You catch yourself doing that, like, what the shit? Yeah. Like I said, I would never say that. And here you are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That was the intro in our church this morning. They had a whole video of a man that was walking around saying all the things that like his parents said, and then all the things that you would never say to your kids, like the complete opposites. Like, you have a project that's due tomorrow and you're starting it now, you still have 24 hours. Like, it was such a good video of like the complete, like what you're never going to hear your father say to you.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah, plenty of time. What are you?
Yeah.
Go ahead, break that game out. Let's play some Madden.
It was just one after another. It was good. I do have in the margins here written that I have a few more digs that she threw at the, well, let me see. When she was comparing her house specifically to Christine's. Yeah, she wasn't liking Christine very much. You can tell this is very much a chapter of the combating the story that Christine was going to come out with about McKelty. She said, because I don't have all the extra responsibility and work that comes from having so many small children, I can be focused on a child when he or she is in my home. I am able to offer stability and structure to the kids. And I thought, ooh, that line right there was a little heartful. Like, I am able to offer stability and structure. What are the two things you want for your kids to have? Stability and structure. You know, like you just want them to feel safe, have a safe environment that's stable, that they understand. Like, you know, so I felt like a little bit of a dig. And then there was another one where she said, with 5 other children, Christine sometimes doesn't have patience for Isabel, period. I was like, whoa. I mean, there is such another way that we could have put that sentence. And then she goes on to say, I really like the fact that I can be there to handle Isabel when Christine is feeling overwhelmed with her. I just thought, you know what? She could just say that, like, she offers a home, and Isabel is somebody that sometimes needs quiet time. So she's happy that during those times that it's a place that she can go and have her quiet time. And she's happy to be a good sister wife to Christine, and Christine as well, you know, understands that Isabel has the freedom to come over whenever she wants and have her quiet. You know, she made it sound like it was less about her home and more about her. You know, when she was saying this. And so I just felt like, boy, that could have been worded so differently. And she finishes it with, Christine will joke from time to time that Isabel should come live with me since she loves being at my house so much. And which we heard on the show too. Christine did admit at one of the interviews that Isabel and Meri have a close relationship. And there are times that she'll go and spend the night over with at Mary's house too. And then she goes on to say, half the time, I'm not sure that she's joking. And then she ends the paragraph right there. Like, she just really wants to get rid of Isabel. I'm like, I don't remember Christine and Isabel having, I mean, of course the show doesn't show everything. So I don't remember that much conflict. I do remember Christine mentioning it at one point in reference to, sometimes Isabel and her, you know, when they get into tiffs, Isabel can go to Mary's house because she enjoys the quiet and she has a special connection with Meri. And that's what she loves about Sisters. This is a propaganda program here. And that's why she enjoys Sister Wives so much, because Mary's there for her and it's a place that she can go and she'll spend the nights there every now and then. But I felt like Meri tried to turn that into a little bit of a dig and more of a Isabel's my girl kind of story.
Right. Well, because I took it more as Meri just gently saying, or maybe not even so gently saying that Christine has too many kids. You know what I mean? Like, you can't take care of all of them. When it's too much for you, you get overwhelmed because you have too many kids.
You got those 5 other ones, so I'll take the one that you can't handle. Yeah.
Right, because you have too much on your plate. So that's kind of how I took it. But there was one episode where Isabel was supposed to be moving in with Meri, and Christine had walked her over. It was when they were living in the cul-de-sac, and Meri had set up a little room for Isabel. But I just thought maybe it was part of the propaganda program where they set it up like, this is a great opportunity for one of the other mothers to step in and mother the other kids. And we have all this room and all these houses, and we're all seen as the mothers. And I can pick up where she drops off because, you know, she's too much for her or whatever. And she needs my kind of discipline.
Wouldn't that be funny if that was like pretty much sort of set up for the show? Like they say, do you ever have a situation like this? And like, well, Isabel is close with Meri. And then like, Meri, would you be interested if she, you know, like, and she talked to Isabel. And so it was really kind of done for the show. And then Meri turns around and writes in her book. Like, and there's no way Christine can combat it because in the show she came out and said, yeah, she has this great.
Yeah, right. She's awesome with Isabel.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a point too where kids, as they start to come into their own, they're trying to find their own adulthood.
Yeah.
Their own way in the world. They're going to bump heads with their parents.
Yeah.
Because you are the gatekeeper to adulthood, really.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of in their way because you're the one that's restricting and restraining them from being able to do the adult things that they feel like they're entitled to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to bump heads. It's natural. It's natural.
Yeah.
But the last section I titled it "Deal with the Devil," because Meri has talked about, like, she said she had 3 things that she could do. First, she said she could go back to school to help out the at-risk youth that she had said she was going to do later on in the series, where she went to Robin and said, "Yeah, I'm going to go back to school." And Robin got pissed at her and was ready to storm out of her house because how dare you do things to improve yourself. Yeah. And she said she could work for one of the family businesses, which was the multi-level marketing business that they were involved with. The third possibility wouldn't be possible if I didn't have sister wives. Over the last couple years, I've been blessed to experience the true love that 2 sister wives can share. Robin's shown me this many times, most recently after the birth of her son, knowing that I've often dreamed of having more children of my own, and knowing that my body is very resistant to the idea. She pulled me aside, and with only the love that a sister wife could give or understand, she offered to carry a child for Cody and me. This would mean becoming a mother again in a way I would never would have thought possible. We talked about this, but it just struck me like the 3 things that she said she wanted to accomplish. One of those things, 2 of those things was never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 2 of those things she was fated to never be able to accomplish. But like I said, I think that it was indicative. Like, I like that as a kind of a button, just to show that Meri was committed, had more commitment to the family than the family had towards her. Because a lot of the family was looking towards a lot of the family was so anxious in trying to do the show and blend Robin in that Meri was kind of lost or forgotten. And a lot of the dreams, hopes, and ambitions that she had, she wasn't able to accomplish.
Do you know any more about this number 2? I have the chance to pursue one of our family businesses by doing some humanitarian work and traveling with friends and family to new places I've never been before. What humanitarian work did they ever do?
I think they were talking about that multi-level marketing business, because that would be depending on how it's marketed towards the end user or the IBOs. They'll tell them, like, you could go out and help other people. You could go to different places and try to get people into this thing. I don't know. That's the only thing that they had going on, because that was when they got out to Vegas. That's when they got the Murano, because they signed up for the multi-level marketing business. And other than that, like, because that was one of the only things they had going on as far as like the income. It was the multi-level marketing business, of course, the TLC show, the proceeds from the book, and eventually it was going to be a Sister Wives Closet if they could ever get that off the ground. But they didn't have a whole lot of business ventures going on, except for Cody. He had that gun business that he was in. But other than that, no, they didn't have anything going on like that.
Yeah, but she really made that sound pretty amazing, didn't she? She put a lot of flowery extra words in there. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that any of that is really true.
Right.
Like that you're going to pursue, do humanitarian work, traveling with family and friends to new places you've never been before. Or is it just, I'll pursue the family business by the humanitarian work throws me off. But if we got rid of that line, it would be pursue the family business and travel with family and friends to new places I've never been before, because I'd be working so hard for the family business. I'd be making extra money and maybe earning cruises and trips and traveling with friends that I would meet in the business. That makes sense. The whole humanitarian work part, I don't get that whatsoever. Or maybe she thinks when she would travel there, she would then do humanitarian work while she was there on, in whatever part of Mexico or wherever she would end up on her vacation. So but it's just written so poor. That whole thing is written so poorly. It begins in the middle of the paragraph. Here are the 3 things. And then she does the 1, 2, and she doesn't even say 2. So it's kind of confusing because those 2 sentences, the humanitarian work, threw it off. I'm like, are these 2 different things? Is it the family business and who doing humanitarian? Because I thought that was 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Like the whole grammar and structure of this is so terrible. Then we start a whole new paragraph and we start talking about the 3rd possibility. I thought we were talking about something else at first. And then when we started talking about the baby, I'm like, oh, wait. I think this is number 3.
Right.
Oh, the grammar in this book is crazy.
Well, I think too, like with the, because even with the multi-level marketing businesses, a lot of those are they sell it in a way that you're actually supposed to be helping people. So by you doing the business, you can help other people realize their dreams of being millionaires too. So
you can be a humanitarian to the other person that's living in your subdivision that also drives a convertible.
Right.
You want to call that humanitarian work, but all right.
Right.
Tomato,
you sign them up, and because you guys are doing meetings, at your house, you're expanding their dreams and helping them out, making their dreams come true.
Yeah, so funny. Great chapter.
Yeah, but that's pretty much where I was. Like I said, the one thing I will say about a lot of the chapters in the book, there are nuggets of information, and if anything, there's some Easter eggs or some putting information together with other information that they've revealed as things that we've seen in different places in order to get a more complete, coherent story. But for the most part, I feel like there's so much hidden agenda, obfuscation. Like there's always them trying to hide something back as far as not telling the full information. Because one of the complaints that you've even had in previous lives where you talked about, if they really want you to understand, they will provide a timeline, a coherent timeline as to this is where we started, this is what happened, and this is when it was over. But very seldom do they do that. They kind of start in the middle, kind of like a Tarantino film or whatever. They start in the middle, and then they kind of work their way backwards so that they can work their way forward again. And then you wind up with the end or the resolution towards the end, but you don't know where you started or where you finished. So, and I feel like that's kind of where things are with a lot of this, because I can recognize and pick up from some of the things that they say where the timeline is. But they don't ever come out and say that this is the timeline. This is how it started. I mean, I pieced together based on some of the stuff they were saying, like the pool and all that this was the first rental house they had in Vegas, and not the homes that they had, like the 4 or 5 homes, 4 homes they had in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you have to be a detective.
Right.
To really figure this out. And really, if you're a good detective, you realize a lot of it's BS.
Right. Yeah, because it just doesn't make sense. Like a lot of it, when you pare it all down, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Still good stuff, though. I'm gonna be sad when this book ends.
Yeah, because we're what is it? We have this, and then we have.
There's one more section, isn't there, after this one?
Yeah.
We're looking.
Well, it's 2. It's the another big section with the wives, celebrity, and then you have Cody's epilogue.
Oh.
So he's going to tell you what he thinks.
So joy.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun way to end it. I can only imagine. Love to know what he has to say.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be crazy. As you can tell, we're a great big old family, and I am the leader who thinks about the big picture.
Mhm.
Keep all the balls in the air. But they're all strong, independent women, so it's okay.
Right.
Okay. Got a guest star.
It's officially 10 o'clock. My cat has let me know.
You're right.
Where's my food? I will
You're
jump
right.
all the way on top of your desk if you will not listen to me meowing at your feet.
Right. So you know what time it is. That's all right. Well, I mean, perfect timing because that's all I had. I think I've
That's all I have too.
exhausted all my points.
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to make sure I give a huge shout out and a big thanks to all our mods. I got Lizzie B in the house as well as Rochelle J. I think J Baby, she might have popped in and popped out. But I want to thank the mods. Also, you had some mods in there too? I saw a couple
I do. I know Lynn Skinner is here for sure.
Yep.
But I'm not sure. Last time I said I didn't think Lynn Vaughn was, but Lynn Skinner said, yeah, Lynn Vaughn was. So she may have popped in and out too.
Okay.
But from what I can tell, I think Lynn Skinner was the main one. I was trying to glance over as much as I could. But yeah, I think that's the main one that was here. So thank you very much, Lynn, for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. And appreciate the chat once again for hanging out with us, keeping everything lively, keeping everything friendly. You know, hanging out on a Sunday night.
On the way out.
Right? Yeah, the like button, subscribe to both channels if you haven't done so already. Also, make sure you leave a comment. Well, you've been leaving comments the whole time, but you know, it always helps.
That's true. Yeah,
especially with the.
What else do you have going on this week, James?
Oh, I have the live tomorrow, and I have to get this dang on video out. I had to, as you can tell, I did some changing in my. I had to move my studio around, so still in the throes of that. I got some new equipment, some sound stuff, and all that. So
awesome!
Kind of excited to see what happens.
Yeah,
but I will have a video dropping. And what about you? What do you have coming up?
I am going to early on this week. I had planned on doing the second half. For a lot of technical reasons and a lot of just crazy reasons. I had recorded a video with my son where I was just teaching him about sister wives, and I was going to do the second half of it, but the second half of it just kind of became a mess. So I just told them, I'm like, let's just sit down and do it again. We'll just start from there and we'll do it again. But I didn't have a voice for about 4 to 5 days this week. Like today literally is the first day. It's still in a whole different register than it normally is, but at least I have a voice. And it just sounded so bad that even last night I couldn't. So I had to cancel my live on Thursday. And so my goal is, because he's going to be leaving to go out of town on Thursday, before then, early in the week, I'm going to record that and get out the second half of it. It'll be going to Vegas and Flagstaff. So the beginning is just kind of leading up to, they're going to leave to go to Vegas. And it's not, it's really just informational. It was just kind of like, would you like a recap before we could start season 19? Or are you new to Sister Wives and you want to hear about it? Or whatever. I just thought it would be more interesting rather than me just sit here staring at the camera saying, then they did this, then they did this, would be me telling him about it. And then he could every now and then go, what? Say, huh?
Why would they do that?
Yeah, which is funny because he had a couple of good one-liners in the second half of it too, and I'm like, yeah, shoot, they're not going to come the second time because it won't be the first time he hears the information. I'm sure there's plenty other stuff that I'm sure he'll be able to comment on, and he's a man of few words to begin with, so I didn't know if he would do any commenting or just sit there and nod the whole time. So I'm going to get that out this week. Instead, I had another video in the can that I was able to put out. A few people are like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're feeling better." I think Kathy was one of them. So glad to see you feeling better. I'm like, no, that was from like 2 weeks ago. Because I'm just laying in bed, I might as well edit it, get it out to the people. So that's coming out, but I do have my fingers in the fire of a lot of other projects. And I mentioned a couple of them here where I just have little clips that I'm collecting. So when I feel like the problem is, James, as I'm putting these videos together, I know there's so many more examples, or I know there, and I just can't think of like, oh, was that one? And inevitably I'll publish something and it will be the next week that I'll come across something going, that would have been perfect. Then I get so mad at myself. I have to let go of my I don't want to say I'm a perfectionist. I'm not. And I think it kind of really is more of an OCD kind of thing for me where I get like frustrated, like every piece needs to be a part of it to make it complete, but it's an impossibility without having some sort of tracking software where it's like, oh, when they talk about this and put it in and have it like appear, like sometimes in a Google search, you can find that stuff, but there's so many more examples. So I need to learn to just say, I've got enough. I got enough that I can put together and I can create a video. So I have a good 15 of those like ideas with a few clips here and there that I'm going to look at this week and say, okay, which one of these has enough that I can now just sit down and record my portion of it and then put all the clips that I've collected together. So I don't know, it'll be a surprise, but we will be meeting again on Thursday because it is going so late. And because tomorrow night I have an obligation already. We're just skipping last Thursdays. I told people that I was going to try to do it Friday if my voice came back, which it didn't. And then Saturday, just completely sounding really rough still. And so this is the first of it. And now since it would be Tuesday anyway, I'm like, you know what? We'll just pick it back up on Thursday.
There you go.
That's what we'll be doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully folks will tune in. Got a lot of exciting stuff happening. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for showing up. Thanks for coming out.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging out with us. My name is James. That's my take. This has been My Take on Reality.
I did it again. I stepped on your line. This is Jenny from Senior Perspective.
All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. See you next week. It will be a good time. We'll talk about Janelle and the whole family experience. It should be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy. Have a great Sunday.
Goodbye, everybody.
And thanks everybody for wishing me a happy Father's Day. I appreciate you.
Yeah.